It's that time of year. It's that time of year when everybody gets fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that time of year when everyone goes off their diet, everyone goes off plan. But if you have food that tastes good, you don't have to go off plan. If you got some Piedmontese steaks, you don't need to worry about what's being cooked up for Thanksgiving or what's being cooked up for Christmas, or you don't have to involve yourself with what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep it keto or keep it keep that protein up nice and high with some Piedmontese steaks. I cooked up a big old ribeye.
Did you let it sit?
Night. I did.
That's always tough.
I was successful letting it sit, and I did a reverse sear, which I've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out how to do it either because like the ribeye was gigantic, and then so I was just like, I don't know what to put it in or put it on, so I put it on like an iron what the hell are those called, cast iron pan, and I threw that in the oven, cooked it like that for probably like 20 minutes because it was massive. Somebody just told me like, oh, you only need to do like 10 minutes, but this thing was huge. So I did 20 minutes, and then when I took it out, I cooked it for about another 5 on each side, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. It was so good.
Yeah.
I ate the whole thing. Well, I had a little help from Daisy.
Oh, really? You gave her some?
My little doggy, she helped me with some of it. Yeah.
One bite for us would be like half her body weight. So
Yeah.
I know. And I saved the dog bone. I put the dog bone in the freezer because her birthday's coming up.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. You got to take a bunch of pictures for us.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check this stuff out, like Piedmontese beef has been huge for me with this whole shred down thing. And when I noticed, the biggest like eye opener was when I calculated Piedmontese macros, and then I had, just like I had ground beef, and I'm like, oh, I definitely don't want that. I'd rather have this because I could have way better stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, during this month, we're actually not running a promo code with them. They are just giving everybody 25% off.
Damn.
Yeah, so if you guys want to...
They're getting serious over there.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check this stuff out, head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. Everything's already 25% off, but if you guys want to support the show, use the link in the show notes right now.
You want to try to keep yourself away from some treats, then... the best way to do it is to give yourself a treat that's a better option. Going with like a Quest bar, the Quest donut bar, or going with a Quest cookie. I have where we go for Thanksgiving every year. I have that house stocked up full of Quest bars and Quest cookies, and that way when I see somebody else, diving into cookies and whipping out the ice cream and desserts and stuff, I get to enjoy something too, but it's just something a little different.
Yeah, we talk a lot about like habits and stuff on this show, and it's a really cool thing. Like Andrew, I think you just said this when you're potentially dieting and you're craving something, and the first thing that comes to mind is a Quest Hero bar instead of a cookie or something else. Like that's what you want to, that's what you want to have a lot of.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
And it's more of it's not even like half and half at this point. Like it's not because like, oh, I want a healthier option. Like, no, I literally just want a hero bar because they taste that good.
Yes.
Like that's, again, I'm really focused on stuff right now with my body and my physique, but I truly do just want like a hero bar. It's it sounds silly, but yes, it is that damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. And you're just trying to have habits that are a little bit better than what you had before. That's the way you're going to make progress.
Yeah. You guys seriously do need to try out these hero bars, the chips. Everything is incredible. Head over to questnutrition.com right now, and at checkout, enter promo code MarksQuest for 20% off your entire order.
And our boys over at Perfect Keto, I'm still mixing up that MCT powder oil, probably about every other day because I don't do a regular fast all the time. Sometimes I'll do a regular fast and not have the MCT oil powder. Sometimes I'll just have coffee.
Yeah.
But I've been mixing in the MCT oil powder. It gives me a little extra burst. I also mess around with the instant coffee that they have that has MCT oil powder in it as well. And I also mess with the ketones that they have. So I like that product as well.
That MCT oil powder is really good. If you can, just when you go home, grab a small little plastic bag. If you can just go into the salted scoop, just go into the salted caramel, put the scoop in the bag, and the next time we podcast,
I'll think about it. But it might be It might be just half a
It's
scoop
probably
at this
gone.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Days like today where I'm feeling a little bit more hungry because I've been fasting every single day. Days like today where I need a little extra something, I reach for the MCT oil powder, and I'm a fan of vanilla. So after this podcast, I'm actually going to mix coffee with the vanilla MCT oil powder. I don't understand it. These two guys over here understand it, but like for me, it just helps. The hunger goes away. I get a little boost of energy. I think that's probably because of the caffeine combination, but everything all about it, it's so damn good.
And nobody really likes black coffee. I think everyone just kind of thinks they do. Throw a little flavor in there. Throw a little something in there.
That's true, actually. It is better with black coffee.
Yeah.
It is better. Yeah.
Yeah, it is better.
Makes it better.
Yeah. If you guys want to get better, head over to perfectketo.com/power project. At checkout, enter promo code power project for 15% off your order. You guys will not regret it.
You know, it's a rough one.
White knuckles.
Oh my God. I actually, are we going already? Are we in?
Almost.
Are we in? Are we in the way? Because I mean, sometimes this stuff's important. I mean, most of the time it's not.
All right, we're going now.
So I'll back it up, I guess, to this morning.
You won't.
So I took a poop this morning that was just like a pure like little round blob, like not a turd and not like a poop, you know, not like a long poop. It was just like it looked like soft serve ice cream. I mean,
nice.
That was one of our recipes in the book.
Soft serve. Hey, what a great way to plug the book. A great way to start out the podcast.
Wait, did it come out messy though, or did it come out like smooth?
No,
like
that's the
soft
weird
serve?
part. Is it wasn't messy.
Was it
wasn't
like
The
all
swirl
liquidy.
on the end, or
A little bit of extra little Froster's Freeze swirl at the top. But I was just in our bathroom, and I always find it interesting what you end up seeing in there.
yeah,
Like sometimes, like where people are able to get poop or pee, you're just like baffled.
It's
You're
amazing,
like, how is
yeah.
this possible? We need to run forensics on this stuff and figure out.
Gravity-defying poop.
Yeah, we need to get like, you know, like how they get out those strings and they like line them up with different things. Like this is the way the splash went. This is the point of exit that was probably happening.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe the guy was like leaning forward. Maybe the person was leaning forward too much, or maybe they used the squatty potty a little too hard or something. But I didn't, you know, fortunately I didn't see any of that today. But I did see the streaks on the actual bowl, like at the bottom of the bowl.
Yeah.
And I always find that interesting because it's like, what kind of poop like does
How
that? Like
dense
yeah,
was it?
like it has to leave its mark, right?
Yeah.
It's got some weight behind it. That's why, you know.
It needs
impact.
this earth to know that it was here.
I didn't think about that.
Weight or impact.
The velocity in
Yeah.
which it shoots down.
is this
Probably
making
just-
your situation any better?
It's not making it worse per se, but we'll see.
Anyway,
We'll see.
good start to the morning. Other than all the poop stuff, you get that out of the way, and then end up with a
wrong with
photo
poop.
shoot for our boy Andrew.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Our boy William comes in. He's like, "What the hell's going on around here? Everyone's taking their shirts off."
Yeah.
And
Well-
William wants to get in on the act because he's always taking his shirt off.
Just one look at William's Instagram, and you're just like, dude, I'm out of shape. Like, no matter what, no matter how good you're doing, you're just like, oh, I
know,
gotta
I just
drop a
counted
little
up.
bit more.
I think I counted up 8 abs on like this picture that's in his cookbook here.
Not these days, man. It's
Fattening
been
up?
been bulking season for me.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
game season.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so for the past, let's see, since I was 17, been like 154. So I'm 165 right now, which is the
Attaboy.
heaviest I've ever weighed in my life. So it's
Whoa.
good.
Nice.
You're
Congrats,
huge.
dude.
You're
I'm
huge.
swelling up as I speak.
You're
Yeah.
huge, bro.
But yeah, so it's finally, the bulk has finally started.
What are you running?
Low TRT, we're doing some tren, and
Attaboy.
I'm running some carbs. That's what
there
I'm
we
running.
go.
Yeah.
Are you eating some carbs?
I am, yeah. So they're not entirely strict.
All right. Well, this podcast is over. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, we can't have it
Andrew,
long.
you didn't do a background check?
Well, we thought we did, and you know, he said trend test, like, okay, we're cool, and then
We're
he
good.
said carbs, just like, dude, I thought you wanted to be safe.
And then he
about
said
things.
bread, and
Oh my
now
gosh.
we realize this guy's off the rails.
We're gonna have to start pricking people's
No
fingers
wonder
before
why
we get them on the show here.
Yeah.
There's no ketones in this body.
No wonder
right
why
now.
you hit 165. He's eating bread.
Illegal.
It's just inflammation.
That's
Pure inflammation.
That's awesome. So why the switch to eating some more carbs, or to eating carbs? Period.
Well, trying to bulk on carnivore, I tried that for quite a while, and without dairy. So I try to do it without dairy because I don't react well to dairy. So without dairy, I just could not put weight on, like in terms of satiety. So I just realized, you know, you're making harder on yourself than it needs to be. So I started bringing in sweet potatoes and white rice and things like that. That was going well, but it's just like, I just decided, you know what, let's just relax a little bit with this. I hit a protein goal every day. And then on top of that, if I eat any carbs outside of that, whether it's fruit or rice or sweet potatoes, that's pretty much what I'm doing currently. So it's still the same template of what I would usually eat: meat, eggs, fish, some form of maybe organ meats occasionally. And then on top of that, it's whatever I want to eat. So yeah,
cool. You get to like throw down a burrito or something like that here and there?
Here and there, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I try not to overdo that though, because I don't want to mess my gut up.
Right.
Chipotle will do things to you. So,
but you might kind of just like end the day with something sweet or something that you really are craving or something like that.
Yeah. It's nice. The whole shredding thing gets old after a while. Like it really does. Like when you get shrunken down to
counterproductive.
You
keep trying to lose weight all the time, you're actually just probably going to start to hit a wall and maybe start to burn up some muscle.
Training's a lot more fun when you're bulking too.
Oh yeah.
Way more fun. Like just feeling the weights and having that glycogen, having that sodium in you, like it feels a lot better.
I think diet breaks are massively important for people. I think every once in a while people just say screw it.
Yeah.
And whether you want to have a cheat meal here and there, or whether you even want to just take a few days off, I think as long as we're not talking about people that are, you know, still on their journey to try to lose like 100 pounds and things like that, like I do think it's important that you do your best to stick to your guns, and whatever way you got to get a W, whatever way you got to get a victory. If that means you need to have like a fathead pizza here and there, you need to do something that's you know, it's not coming from natural food sources. You just do what you got to do to stay on diet. But I think other than that, when we're just talking about fitness people and people that are in better shape, I think you got to just completely just let it go every once in a while and just be more relaxed about it, and not you know, worry so much about what you weigh and how much your food weighs and how much energy is in the food and all that crap.
Isn't there a word, orthorexia, for like people that just get obsessed with that stuff? Yeah, like I've been obsessed with that stuff for a long time. So this is the first time in my life where I'm just completely relaxed and happy about it. Like I realize, you know what, like you've kind of achieved what you want to achieve, which was like achieving a certain kind of body and clearing skin up and things like that. And I'm like, let's just relax a little bit and enjoy it. So I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Real quick, I want to know about this. When you said you were trying to bulk on Carnivore, were you also like really trying to pump up your fats too, or were you just like killing up the protein?
Yeah, no, the fats were going up too. So instead of New York steaks as usual, it was ribeyes. I was adding butter to things. The thing I notice about that is that with that bulk, you tend to put on more fat. Yeah. So yeah, you're converting the fats into glucose if you need that, but you're also just consuming so much fat that it's like spilling over. So like I kind of like pulling in the carbs and, you know, like sucking some of that water into the muscles. I think that you can bulk a little bit leaner than on Carnivore. But yeah, that's just what I'm playing around with right now.
Cool.
I like a variety of diets myself. I've, you know, used a bodybuilding style diet in the past, and I probably have had my best results in terms of being able to like I don't in the gym I can perform just fine, and I have enough energy to get through whatever I need to get through. But in terms of like holding and maintaining a certain body weight and lifting the heaviest amount of weights, kind of mixing in having the most fun and like just not caring too much about the look, or not, you know, caring too much about what I weigh. I had my best results with a little bit of carbohydrates in there. Yeah. Sweet potato, rice, you know, sometimes it would be every third day, sometimes it would be a couple times a week, but it wasn't a couple times a day. You know, once it started getting a couple times a day, that's when you have to kind of shift maybe what you're doing a little bit, and aim your direction maybe towards a bodybuilding diet, because you'll probably have to bring the fats back down a little bit.
I find fasting, like continuing to fast and then doing, you know, lots of protein and then having the carbs on top of that, that works out really well for me. That kind of creates enough of, you know, boundaries around the carbs so that it's not like an all day kind of thing. So
not a complete onslaught.
Yeah.
And what you been up to lately? What you been doing?
What I'm doing right now is preparing for getting into acting. So that's been my main focus. My main thing with acting, like I love acting and I have the acting bug, but it's not a great stable way to make a living, especially when you're starting out. If you're not willing to do the whole like busting tables kind of thing and all that, which I wasn't willing to do, and I'm also not willing to get a job. So when you have those two factors, you have to figure something out. So I really focused more on like the health and nutrition side of things, doing this online business where I help people out with like keto and carnivore diets, writing these books, the carnivore cooking one and the PE diet, and just focusing more on that stuff. And then on the side, I was doing a bunch of commercial modeling, and I was doing like some print modeling and stuff like that. But yeah, having done those things and kind of set up some of that foundation in the past year and a half, I really want to act again. And I feel like I'm in a good position to do that now. And I'm still 24 and I don't want to wait too long. So I'm going for it.
Don't you have like a leg up on everybody though? Because like you've been in some pretty big stuff in the past.
It's not a bad, like I don't feel like I'm starting from scratch, but I wouldn't say like I'm going to walk into it and just get a role handed to me.
Okay.
Like I feel like I'm going to have to hustle as hard, if not harder than when I started to get to where I want to be, like to book some of these young DC roles and things like that. It's going to take a lot of work. So, but yeah, I'm excited.
By the way, if you guys don't know what we're talking about exactly, he was the Red Ranger, that's pretty fucking awesome.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
When did all that start? That started as a kid? Did your parents encourage you to get into acting, or was it your own idea, or like how'd you get into the Red Ranger-ness in the first place? I know we've talked about it previously, but might as well let people know again.
Yeah, I liked the idea of being an actor from when I was young. Like I remember watching this movie that nobody was inspired by but me. It was Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and I remember. Right, I saw Taylor Lautner in that, and he was like this like tan spiky hair kid, and that was me at that age. And I was like, and I was doing karate, and he was doing karate, and I was like, why am I not there? Why am I not doing that? That looks great. So I would watch that kind of stuff.
You gotta pull up clips of that.
Oh, yeah.
It's
there we go.
Oh wow, that was fast.
Lava Girl. Oh God.
There's nothing about this movie that's an inspiration to anyone.
That's great. How old were you?
I was maybe like 8 or 9.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like I grew up on wrestling, so I had all of these like larger than life heroes in my head. So I loved all of that stuff. Did karate all the time. Look at that. That's not Shark Boy and Lava Girl. That's like,
Oh, that's not. I don't know.
That's like Teletubbies or something. What is
I have
that?
No idea. I don't know.
We don't know what we pulled up, but this might even be.
Is Taylor Lautner.
That is. This
That's
movie's
Taylor
a lot
Lautner.
worse than I.
That's even better.
Dear God.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that was the kid that I was like, I could have been that kid.
Oh my God.
By the way, that's what's his name? Something from Twilight. What's his name? Jacob.
Team Jacob. Yeah,
Jacob, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was something I wanted to do as a kid. But I just had all these thoughts, like, you always think that your dad has to be a director, or you have to know somebody in the family that's an actor, or you have to come from money or something. So for those reasons, I didn't go into it, but also because I had like a lot of insecurities around my appearance. That was a big part of it too. I had like severe acne issues when I was like a teenager. So that definitely like impeded my ability to go for that stuff. But once I shifted my mindset around that stuff and I realized, like, you know what, you can do it. That was when I was in college, and I kind of told you this story. There was someone who there was this girl in college who gave me this compliment, and then I was like, you know what? Like, if she sees it, then why don't I just go for this, And that was literally all it took. It was funny. Like, I actually sent her a text maybe a month ago, and she, I haven't messaged her in years. And I was like, hey, I don't even know if you remember who I am, but I'm like, thanks. You said something nice a long time ago, and it actually changed the course of my life. So I just want to say thanks. Yeah. And she's like, what the hell?
Yeah, you were very self-conscious about your appearance, and she said that, one of her friends liked you or something like that, right? Or something to that effect?
Yeah, she like her suite of like friends and like our suite of guys would always hang out, and she's like, yeah, like, I don't know if you know this, but like all the girls in our suite think you're like really cute. And to me, it was like,
hell yeah.
To me, that was like the last thing I expected. So it's funny, just hearing something like that sometimes can just be the little domino effect that sends you in the right direction. So yeah, that kind of moved me in that direction.
It's an interesting thing because nothing has changed. It's just somebody said something, and you take those words, and it can kind of show you. You can let the words sometimes crumble you when you get something negative, or you can take something positive and run with it.
Yeah, I think it's an imperative for us to think about like the way that we speak to people too. You could either really be watering someone or you could really be tearing them down. And people don't think about that sometimes. Like, especially guys, like we'll joke around with each other, and sometimes we could throw a little dagger that just hits a soft spot that somebody you didn't expect.
It's a little too much. Take someone right down to their knees. Like, whoops.
Yeah, that's true.
Guy ends up crying in his car later on because some sentimental song hit the radio and just in tears driving down the street.
That's
Oh my God.
But yes, I ended up starting to go for the acting stuff when I was 20, and just really, really pushed on it my last year in college because I was doing an economics degree for 3 years up until then. So that was kind of like where I thought my life was headed. But once I shifted my mindset, I kind of made a deal with myself, like, anything you ever wanted to do in life and like, whatever your greatest potential is, like, let's just go for that. You really have nothing to lose. And that's the truth. Like we're all going to die and we really don't have anything to lose by trying to become our greatest self. So that's pretty much the mission I've been on since then.
A quick question, because a lot of people that really want to get into acting, they feel like they needed to do something earlier, like maybe do theater as a kid or whatever. You didn't do any of that, right?
No.
When did you start doing any type of acting?
At 20.
At 20?
Yeah.
And what was that through? Because you said you were econ in school. So where did you do it?
Any and everything.
Okay.
That sounds bad though.
You're right. It does.
Yeah.
A lot of gay for pay.
There are a lot of couches I was introduced to. No, what that actually means is, so at UCSD, like I literally scoured everything around me. So I set this goal for myself junior year of college. And I realized I had 1 year left of college. So I was like, by the end of this year, if I can book like a major role on a TV show, I'll be good. I don't have to get a job when I leave college. So that was the goal that I set for myself, which was kind of ludicrous at the time, but I started with anything that was around me. So at UCSD, they had a MFA program, and they had a great theater there and a theater program. So I started auditioning for all the plays. I started going on all these casting networks, auditioning for every non-union gig that I could get my hands on. Going on to like different castings for like little stand-up comedy things, like all kinds of random stuff.
Yeah.
And I would just do that stuff constantly. And my mentality was, if I take enough shots, I'm going to sink one of them. And that's going to slowly start to build up my resume. You got to get your headshots done. You go to acting classes. So I started going to the acting classes at UCSD because it was available to me.
Yeah.
And it was just taking all of those little opportunities, which led to booking a few short films at the neighboring college, SDSU, which led to, I booked some theater roles, and then I started booking non-union commercials, and then I started booking some independent film work, and then I started booking like really small TV things, and then that's what led to Power Rangers. So it was just like a little snowball effect within that year.
Yeah.
But the crazy part about that for me was that by the end of that year, I booked the Power Rangers gig. So that to me kind of confirmed that if you set a goal and you're really, really focused on it and you actually break it down and take the steps necessary, you can achieve it. But after that, I actually learned that takes a certain obsessive focus that causes other areas of your life to really deteriorate. So at the same time, I wasn't talking to my family. I had no social life. I didn't hang out with anybody on the weekends. I would get up at 4 and go to bed at like 10. So I wasn't sleeping much. It was a very like obsessive kind of dangerous mentality to have.
You have a tendency to do that in other areas, like maybe you did that with the carnivore diet a little bit as well.
I have a tendency to do that in a lot of areas. Yeah,
you
and
just go all in, like you're like I like this, I dig this, and then you go so far in that it's almost like a weird trap.
Honestly, I don't ever regret that though, because to me it feels like I'm simply trying to figure out where the bumpers are, and then eventually I start to find like a more middle path. But yeah, that's kind of always been my approach. I learn about something, I want to implement it. I just go full 180 and I start doing it. And then it's like, all right, maybe not that much. And you find that it's like that whole U-shaped curve thing. And you find, let's just get an optimal amount of whatever it is.
I kind of feel sometimes with dieting and like fasting and, not eating carbs and some of these things, you could sometimes make yourself a little crazy. Did you ever kind of feel that? Like
yes.
where you're just like
yeah.
obsessive compulsive about it. You're like, I'm just, you're questioning every move that you make during the day, and you're almost like kind of telling yourself to shut the hell up. Like, just go do something. Just go eat something.
Yeah.
You know, me and Jordan Syatt recently, we kind of did a skit about how our diets are no big deal, and he's a guy that like likes to weigh stuff and count stuff, and I'm kind of more the keto background and stuff, and I was like, yeah, it was no big deal. I was like, all I did today is I walked to this restaurant. It's like a 12-mile walk, and I'll walk back, because I make sure to burn off some of the fuel and stuff, and then he's like, saying, yeah, he's like, it's not a big deal for me either. And then he asked the waitress for a scale, and he's like, oh, you don't have a scale? Good thing I brought my own. He whips his out of his bag and stuff like that. And sometimes it feels that way, like that we're just like being irrational, I guess, is the main thing.
I think that like my honest mentality around that is that can be dangerous, but if you're self-aware of that and that that at some point you need to come out of that, I think there's nothing wrong with temporarily being that way, because I think there's a lot to be learned from that. Because of the skin issues I had, so my whole nutrition journey, I was like 12, 13, and it started like everybody else on bodybuilding.com, buying everything in GNC with my parents' money, like all that kind of stuff. And then when I was 15 to 18, like that whole acne journey really caused me to have to figure stuff out, because, when all the doctor prescribed meds aren't working and they're putting you on antibiotics and everything's making it worse, you realize it's an internal problem. So that really caused me to be obsessive, because when it's the choice between, oh, let's relax about diet and have acne, or let's get rid of the acne, but we're gonna have to be really strict, that was a very easy decision for me to make. And people think that you're disciplined, but it's not discipline. It's a very, very easy decision to make. Like, I don't want to look like that. I want to feel confident. So that created a kind of level of obsession. And that continued for a long time, like a good 6-7 years. And only in this past year have I felt like I'm a normal person now. So
right.
That's nice. It's nice to kind of come out the other end of that.
And I think most people that are, aiming towards success, or people that have already maybe acquired some success, I think people are always going to be like, yeah, man, that guy's a maniac. That guy's crazy, or that guy's like an Elon Musk, or a Jeff Bezos, or anyone that reaches a high level in jiu-jitsu or something like that, or bodybuilding. Jay Cutler, we're going to be like, yeah, Jay Cutler's an alien, dude. Yeah. I think that's okay, but Jay Cutler, I think Jay Cutler is one of the ultimate examples that we have of somebody that went to the extremes, but also understood how ridiculous some of it was, and was able to come out of it and be healthy, both mentally and physically. It's sometimes can be tough when you're trying to put yourself through, you're just trying to like be better, but then you can also at some point become a personal development like junkie, where you're just you're like I'm consuming information all the time. I the second I wake up, I got headphones on and I'm like listening to something. But I'm also self-aware that like, hey, this is like kind of ridiculous. Like I'm picking up a new Tesla today. Like I'm already doing well. Like you can fucking chill out every once in a while. You know what I mean?
There is too much of a good thing with that.
Right.
You can get too far down the rabbit hole of all things self-improvement. Like you hear everybody in this sort of space talk about all the same stuff. Like anybody that's ever been on Tom Bilyeu's show, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've heard them on 35 other podcasts. Yeah. So you realize everybody's hearing the same stuff, everybody's trying to practice the same stuff, and they're all being molded into these like hyper-achieving, goal-oriented, perfect sleeping, perfect nutrition, fasting, meditation.
What's your morning routine, bro?
Yeah, what's your morning routine? Like I love Ted Naiman got asked that on Mike Mutzla, and he's like, I kind of roll out of bed and I like stumble down to the coffee machine, and it's usually after about 6 hours of sleep, and I usually go to bed like bathed in blue light from my TV, and I was just like, thank God, because Mike Mutzla, like everybody on that show gives him this like perfect. I do my mantras, and then I jump into a cold shower, and then I do my Wim Hof, and it's like I was so glad to hear that.
Was he being legit?
He
when
was
said
being
that?
totally serious. He doesn't have a morning routine. He just goes to work.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's amazing.
Oh God, that's great.
He seemed very casual when we had him on our show. He seemed. He was just like he just kind of stuck to his guns about protein. Like protein seems to be the main thing, and he doesn't seem to be all that worried or overly concerned with anything else. He's done a great job of I think deciphering the information. But I do think people can get a little too caught up in it. At the same time, sometimes people need to get caught up in something. Like you said, I really like what you said there about like kind of learning where the bumpers are. Like if you don't ever train your arms to the point where you can't move them for the next 3 or 4 days, how do you really know, what the limitations are? Now, do we need to do it all the time? Like now you're kind of, now it's just starting to get ridiculous to a certain point.
Yeah.
But you should know those things, you should learn those things, and they're going to come at a cost,
Yeah.
They're going to come at a cost.
What ended up being like your solution to your skin issues? Because I mean, you did did you start the vegan diet in the past for the skin issues, or
That's exactly. Yeah.
Did that work at all?
It worked.
It did.
Yeah, I can say that for it. So I started doing a whole foods plant-based diet when I got to college. That was after a huge bout of Accutane. Accutane's a rough thing to do. Oh my God. So it takes pretty much all the lubrication out of your body. So I was like 17 doing strong lifts, and I would have to get out slowly from under the squat bar because of the compression of my spine. There was no fluid between those joints. When I would go to sleep at night, I would have to arch my back on the bed and slowly lower it into the bed, because if you just lower it, it was so much pain. You get up in the morning and like you have to slowly put your feet on the ground, because like your feet, you can't stand on your feet because it hurts so much from the Accutane. So
wow,
it was fun. But that cleared my skin up, and then a couple months later, it all comes back because your oils start to regenerate and your fluids come back. So I was like, all right, we're not doing that again, and I'm not going to go on all these different creams and stuff again. I had been down that rabbit hole for like 4 years at that point. So I was in college. I was like, you know what? I got a little bit of money. I'm working my side jobs and stuff. So let me try to take care of my diet. And at the time, from everything I was researching, like I knew about paleo. Mark's Daily Apple was, going back then. And I was reading some of that. But I started to read more about like antioxidants and this mitochondrial theory of aging. Like if you have enough antioxidants, you can decrease your oxidative stress, which means less heart disease, less cancer, less acne, like anything related to inflammation goes down. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just like load up on the antioxidants. So that led me to whole foods, plant-based. So that's whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, legumes, fruits, vegetables, berries, all that kind of stuff. Every superfood you could think of, matcha and flax seeds and turmeric and all that. So I did that for 3.5 years, and that cleared my skin, that was amazing for me. But over time, I got more and more exhausted. I got weaker. I got more hungry. I could eat to where my stomach was distended, and I was still hungry, and I still wanted to eat. Mental fog, like I couldn't focus on one task for about 45 minutes because I would need a snack. I would need something to keep me going. Fasting wasn't an option either. So you try to fast, then 2 p.m. hits, and when your blood sugar hits a certain level, like you freak out. And I would like sprint back to my apartment to get like something to eat, which was like prunes. Like that was what I would snack on, stuff like that. I just heard Andrew go, "Oh no, prunes." But yeah, it was that sort of thing. So that's what I was doing in college while everyone was having a good time.
Yeah, that would destroy me.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I was having 3 explosive episodes of exits a day. It was bad, man. Like I didn't have a normal crap in those like 3 years. And Dr. Michael Greger, who does the nutritionfacts.org, and he published this book, How Not to Die, which I used to gift people with that. Anybody that had a health issue, I gave that to a professor once, and he's like, I'm not going to up your grade. And I'm like, it's not for that. I just, so I was that guy. But so Dr. Michael Greger would say that humans ancestrally had around like 100 grams of fiber a day. Oh. And most people are doing maybe like 10, 20, 30 if you're really going for it. So I tried to get up to 100, and I would make these green smoothies just packed with beets, kale, parsley, turmeric, whole lemons in there with the peel and everything.
Oh God.
Cloves, like all these little superfoods, blow my stomach up every single day. It was rough. But so by the end of the 3.5 years, I was one season into Power Rangers, still doing that diet. And you could see on the first season of Power Rangers, I've got water retention in my face. I'm thin. And when I finished that first season, I was like, this is not how the Red Ranger's supposed to look. This is not working for me. And that's the hard part about change. When people get really obsessed about something, different circumstances require different solutions, which is something I realize now. Like sometimes people will get on like a 3 a.m. or a 4 a.m. kick, or they might get on like a carnivore kick, or they might get on a meditation kick, or any of these things. And then as their life circumstances change, they don't want to change their solutions to match that. And then that creates like this sort of tension, So with the Power Rangers thing, there was so much tension. I was so sleep deprived. I was like so stressed that the 3 weeks in between 2 seasons, I went home, went right back into the rabbit hole, started learning about keto. This was in like maybe 2017. So there wasn't as much out about it. It was like Finney and Volek, and Jason Whitrock was doing his stuff on YouTube. And there's a few guys talking about it. Logan Delgado was out there too. And I started learning about it. So 180 overnight. Of course, I had to go extreme with it. The next day, I was done with vegan. I was eating bacon and eggs, and I went to In-N-Out and got a 4x4, and I just completely went for it. And I actually, everybody's like, how'd you feel after that? Incredible. I felt like literally the influx of B vitamins and all that kind of stuff, and sodium too. Yeah. I had never had high salt for years. I felt incredible. I don't know how my stomach was able to digest it, but I didn't have any digestive issues. Ooh. I felt really good. So that's pretty much what I did. And then after a couple of weeks, I started to get some keto flu kind of things where my body realized we don't have any glucose coming in. So the headaches, and I was drinking like chicken broth like crazy, and stuff like that. So that was kind of like the transition for me into keto. And keto was great, checked off almost every box except for body comp. And I was doing like moderate protein, fat to satiety. Once I flipped that and I was kind of moderating the fat a little bit and I was letting myself load up on protein, that's when I kind of found out about Carnivore and Ted Naiman's stuff, and I combined those two, and that's where I kind of checked off every box, and I was happy.
What did you find out about the two diets? Because a vegan diet and a carnivore diet are both, in a sense, elimination diets. So I'm sure because you've gone through the process of doing both, you have probably gone through the process of eliminating all different kinds of things. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in, like, maybe the most important thing is like what we don't eat rather than maybe what we eat. Like, yes, we do need to get nutrition from it, but does it really matter if someone's eating like 4 ounces of steak and having some fruit and vegetables throughout the day versus someone eating 4 pounds of steak and having a small amount of like fruits and vegetables? We don't really know. Mm-hmm. We don't really truly know. But what are some things that you learned about kind of eliminating a lot of different foods out of your diet?
Let's see. I would actually say that I think what you do eat is hugely important. So like on that vegan diet, I eliminated so many bad foods. Like there was no sugar, no vegetable oils, anything like that. But I still was not at an optimal state. Mm-hmm. So I think with both of those approaches, they're both great for not dying. Right. But in terms of like thriving in an optimal way and like really feeling great in the short term and the long term, I think what you eat is hugely important. And the main thing I've noticed is that bringing in these really like nutrient dense animal foods had a huge impact on satiety for me. So all of a sudden I could get satiated and feel energized and get strong off of maybe like 1,800 calories. If I tried that on a vegan diet with the same amount of protein and similar levels of energy calories, so carbs or whatever, it's not the same thing at all. You're starving and you're like panicky and shaky. Yeah. It's not good. So yeah, like my mindset around things now, and maybe this is just because of where I'm at right now, but I focus so much on what am I bringing in to the exclusion of other things. Mm-hmm. Perhaps in the beginning, there does need to be a hard exclusion of those things for you to actually feel those initial benefits to give you the motivation to keep going. If you try to do like an inch by inch approach in the beginning, you might feel nothing. So it's so easy to go back those inches that you just gained. Mm-hmm. But that's why I think this whole carnivore thing that Dr. Baker started, where he started this like 30-day challenge when he went on Joe Rogan, that was so powerful for so many people because you feel crazy different when you do 30 days of like red meat and water.
Even after 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of days you feel way different.
Yeah.
And what I'm alluding to is, and this is hard for people to practice, and this is the reason why people make such hard lines. This is the reason why people are like, no, you don't eat any carbs, is because a diet that has some good variety to it is a fantastic idea on paper. And I think that fruit and vegetables can play a big role. I kind of have my own personal theory on like vegetables and stuff. I actually think that vegetables literally just mainly take up some room. They may have some nutritional value, but I think that their value is that they're not meat. And so I think you can kind of overdo anything really. So people that are kind of on a more carnivorous diet, maybe eating 3 pounds of steak, maybe we can look at it in a more logical sense and say like maybe that's not the greatest thing. But we still, like I said earlier, we still don't know. But the problem with having variety and the problem with teaching people, oh, you need a well-balanced diet, and it's just that it's very hard for people to adhere to. They struggle. From what I've seen, occasionally I'll run into somebody, I'll be like, dude, just cut out sugar, cut out flour, and they'll come back to me and like, I lost 30 pounds. But the biggest benefits that I've seen from communicating with people, and I tried all different kinds of tricks on people, has usually been a keto style diet or a carnivore diet. Like, hey, just see if the keto diet's easier to start with because you have at least a little bit more options. And then kind of like moving into like a carnivore diet. That's where I see people having a much larger impact because they just know where the lines are. So like if someone's oh, you can have fruit, you can have vegetables, you can have, rice, potatoes, maybe there's, drinking orange juice here and there, and maybe they're just doing some things. Maybe they're throwing a bunch of butter in their oatmeal in the morning. Like there's probably a bunch of infractions that they might be running into that they're just not paying attention to.
Yeah. Setting up hard guidelines earlier on is probably a really good thing. And then over time, you can figure out where and how to loosen those for yourself. I think in the long run, I think it can be a really good thing to include as much variety as you're able to include. Because I do like this idea of like triaging. Like if your body's not getting enough of certain things, it can potentially leach that from your muscles and from your bones and stuff like that. So like my focus is like as much variety as I can include. But I think that in terms of getting into the habit of things, yeah, definitely cutting things out and just making it easy on yourself. If you tell yourself, I will just eat as much red meat as I want, that's so easy. You don't have to go hungry. You get to have delicious steaks. You get to have as many of them as you want. I think that's a great entry point into starting to bring other things in.
And there's not a lot of don'ts. It's just do. Like that's the one. Like, let's just do that.
Yeah.
It's an add-on rather than a subtraction. And people get pissed about subtractions. I can't have carbs, or I can't have pasta, or I can't have bread, or whatever the thing is you take away. The second you take away something, that's where their focus goes to.
I like, you talk about this a lot. I love the idea of focusing on what you can do because people like it's so much more fun to be proactive than to be a monk. Like it's so much more fun to say, hey, I'm going to do 3 10-minute walks today instead of 2. Right. And I'm also going to have 200 grams of protein. So, and then the night comes and you've already done the walks and you've had the protein and you don't really want the Halo Top now. So you're chill. Sorry, Halo Top, but you're chill. I'm just choosing my own things. But yeah, so it's like focusing on what you can do can really, really help your mindset. And I think that's why exercise is such a big thing. Like a lot of people say with the whole diet and exercise thing, it has to start with diet. But sometimes I feel more proactive starting with exercise. And then you're like, okay, my performance in the gym sucked. Let me eat a little bit better today and try to fuel it in the future. So whichever it is first for people, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But it's, I personally feel that it's harder to start with diet just because there's so many, there's just so many negative influences. Could you start doing some walks here and there? Like, I think I just think that's a reasonable ask. I don't think that's too difficult to do, but someone who's in pain, maybe that is a hard thing. Maybe it is easier for them to kind of start out in their kitchen. One thing I think is really important to point out too, is that the nutritional value of things that you don't want to eat is 0.
Yeah.
And that's like a major factor. So like we could be like, oh dude, you need to eat like, you're doing bodybuilding, like you need to eat these proteins and you need to eat like Brussels sprouts because they help fill you up. And the person's like, I fucking hate Brussels sprouts. It's like, well now we need a different option. Same thing with exercise too. There's always other options for exercise. Somebody comes in the gym and you're like, all right, we're gonna, we did some squats and now we're going to move into some lunges, and they're like, well, I can't do lunges, they kill my knees. It's like, well, do we have other options on leg movements, or they can't do leg extension? Do we have other options that we can put in there? Yeah, sure we do. And same with the foods and stuff like that too. So I think, and that's where we are different. And I think that in general, I think people are very similar. And if you put people on similar diets, and they actually follow them, I think people will have it'll have a profound impact in a good way. on a lot of people. And I don't think you'll see some variation in like the weight that they lost according to, how much weight they needed to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But you put people on kind of like a chicken breast diet with a small amount of like veggies and small amount of carbohydrates, everyone's going to lose weight.
Oh yeah.
But then which guy is that sustainable for? Maybe not any of them, because there's not enough flavor and there's not enough different things in there. And so that's where we differ. We differ in our kind of like mindset more so than anything.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm curious about your experience right now with your bulk, because you said that this is the heaviest you've been in a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've started implementing some carbs. And one thing I noticed when a lot of guys start off lighter and they want to bulk, they just eat an insane amount of carbohydrates and they just bump everything up and it just becomes very unhealthy. They start putting on a lot of fat.
Yeah, you just get fat.
Exactly. But in your case, how are you navigating that? Because you're still utilizing fasting right now, or no?
Mm-hmm.
You are?
Yeah.
So you're utilizing fasting, you're gaining weight, you're gaining muscle. Most guys typically think that's not possible. So how are you navigating that right now?
Just training harder.
Yeah.
So I'm not eating a ton of carbs, but I'm also not being like really restrictive around it.
I know you're not like counting it super hard, but how many would you say you're eating if you were to like a total guesstimate?
If I completely guessed, man, dude, it's literally between 50 to 150 a day.
Yeah.
Like that's about what I can handle after the protein and after the fasting, like I'm not that hungry, but I am trying to get it in. So yeah, like that's the structure around it. But honestly, like the main thing for me is like I'm so focused on just training harder, getting stronger, like pushing myself in the gym. And I can feel what the food's doing for that. It's night and day. Like from when I was, I had done a DEXA scan with Robert Sykes, Mr. Keto Savage, and I was like 6% body fat then, and I felt weak as hell.
Yep.
Like, it just was completely night and day. I think now I'm probably over 10% and I feel incredible, like in the gym. So that's my main focus, like eat what I need to eat to keep improving the performance within the confines of not getting fat, not eating a bunch of junk, and still being able to fast a little bit.
And are you paying much attention to the scale right now? Like when you see the scale maybe stall for a little bit, do you pay attention to that, or you just try to focus on performing better every week?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Like, I'll be honest, I'm not setting like a hard deadline. Like I need to hit this 165 by a certain time. Like for me, it's like 2020. I'm focused on getting as strong as I can, slowly gaining weight, slowly building up. I'm not rushing it. And there's like no hard deadline for me. So if I see I'm down at 163, I'm like, you know what? Okay, lost a little bit of water, lost some weight.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we eat tonight and lift heavy. Let's make sure I'm sleeping too. Sleep has been a huge thing for me. I didn't realize how important sleep was. Like, holy crap. Everything I ever wanted from, fasting and coffee and all these productivity routines and blah, blah, blah. Like, everything gets better when you sleep. It's incredible. So I pay a lot of attention to that these days.
Yeah, that just slapped me in the face recently with this whole shred down thing.
Yeah.
Like I would like certain days I'd be like, man, I look great. I feel great. Like this is awesome. And then I would get, bless you, by the way.
Thank you.
And then I would get like, like 6 or less hours of sleep, and I'd wake up the next day and I'd weigh less and I would look way worse. Like, just like, it. Because I got so lean, I was able to actually notice like how much it affected me.
Yes.
And I was just like, I've said it before, like I know how important sleep is, but now that I could like black and white, like the harsh contrast is just like, oh my gosh, like it is more important than I even understood.
That's funny you said that for shredding. I found that going through the bulk is what forced me to pay attention to sleep, because you can't lift heavy if you're like always sleep deprived.
And you can't catch up either.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is get under like a heavy squat bar and you know that you're going to have to hit like a 5 rep max and you're going off of 4 or 5 hours and it's like the third day in a row and you're just like, why am I doing this to myself? This could be easy. I could be taking this on right now. And I would feel that in every other area of life. But the whole like shred mentality I used to have, I could sleep deprive because like it would cause me to lose more weight. I was like, oh great, like I'm even more shredded, like I'm leaner.
Yeah, no, like I would send pictures of Nsima every single day, and he noticed too. He was just like, dude, look at picture 1 versus picture 2. Like, what's the difference? I'm like, well, I just got sleep in that picture, and he's like, okay, well. What's the problem? We'll get more sleep.
Yeah,
it's like I'm trying, man. But yeah, so I think just because maybe it's like my first time coming down, that's why I'm able to actually notice it and really see the differences that like a couple hours extra sleep will make.
Speaking of coming down, I want to take this mind bowl.
Yeah, so I was thinking we should do a shot
party.
Everybody?
So we're really going with the full thing?
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, you just shove it right up your ass.
Shots.
Kratom enema.
Bing,
Yep.
bing.
All right. cheers
Mind
to you
bullet.
guys.
Mind bullet down the hatch. Mindbullet.com. Mind bullet potion into the face. Oh,
And no one's dead yet.
yet.
How's it taste? How do you?
Earthy.
Very bitter.
Yeah.
So I know it's going to have a very strong impact.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely some plant compounds in there. Shout out Carnivore cooking.
Yeah.
And we're all going plant-based again.
Yeah, let's go have some plants now.
You know, I think you bring up a really good point. I think, bless you again.
Bless you.
I think, what we do really dictates our actions when you're trying to be better, when you're trying to figure out a way, and you're maybe not even trying to be better necessarily, when you're just self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're aware that you want to be better at jiu-jitsu and you're showing up to class and you're half dead and you're getting your ass kicked by people you normally don't get your ass kicked by, something's wrong. So you're either stressed out, you're not sleeping properly, or your food is off. And if you want to be better and you're being self-aware and you have a second, on your way back from practice or on your way back from the gym on why you had a crap performance, which you should be reviewing, because I think, I always think the greatest person you can ever interview is yourself, and you need to do it all the time, as weird or crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
You need to ask yourself a lot of questions. And, if you're kind of just in a mode where you're just not really caring too much and you're just exercising for fun, that's kind of a different thing. And I think that it's important to go into some of those modes here and there as well. But in general, when you're trying to improve and trying to be a little bit better, I think that's where you can start to break down stuff and say, oh man, I do love hanging out with my friends, and that was a lot of fun last night. But tonight I'm going to be in bed by 9:00. It was fun hanging out last night, but I need to stop that. I need to get better at this. I need to get better at lifting. I need to get better at whatever the hell is in front of you that you need to get better at. Over a period of time, those things should kind of almost like auto-regulate themselves, if you're paying attention. But you have to be paying attention. You go in the gym and you go to do a squat and you were expecting to, be 20, 30, 40 pounds stronger on a lift. Something is off. It could just be the diet. I think what you were saying about your blowouts that you had when you were doing the vegan diet, I think these things become kind of normal to us. And we're like, oh, it's just like, that's the price of being healthy. I got to eat stuff that doesn't taste very good. Yep. And I have to, and I have to shit myself all the time or whatever it is. And maybe you're kidding yourself with a keto diet too, or a carnivore diet. I've had gut issues sometimes on a carnivore diet when it went really, really strict and didn't have anything else in there. I ended up same issue you had.
Yeah.
Ended up liquefying those steaks somehow. I'm not sure how it happened.
Powerful gut.
But again, it's do a little review, what is it I'm doing differently and how can I make a change? And maybe it would be good to throw in some variety so my stomach doesn't liquefy my steaks anymore, or whatever the thing is for you.
It's funny how those answers are always there inside of you when you ask the question. Like a little thought will pop into your head, like, oh, maybe it was this food that caused that, or maybe I should start doing this. And the answers are there, but you just have to ask yourself the questions. And the cool thing about like setting goals that, like, this is what my whole life has kind of become ever since I was 20 and I picked that acting goal. You realize like, oh wow, that acting goal made me healthier, and it made me more well-read, and it made me sleep on time, and it made me get up on time. And having that one leading goal created like this domino effect throughout my entire life of what am I going to have to do to achieve this? And it affects every other area of your life. I know a lot of people that don't take on those challenges outside of maybe work. So they never really have anything to cause that cascade throughout their life. But that's the beautiful part of like lifting weights and getting stronger. That's the great part of setting professional goals. It causes you to take care of all the other areas of your life. Like that clarity that you're just talking about, like I shouldn't hang out with my friends late tonight because I need to get to bed at 9 because I need to get up on time and to go lift. You wouldn't know that if you weren't trying to hit a certain number in the gym, or if you weren't trying to get stronger. It would just be like, well, I'll go lift and it's going to be subpar, but who cares? Because I go lift all the time and that's just what I do. But when you like pick a goal and you're like, this is what I have to do, you really have to change other things. And that's almost always, I think, a positive thing. But sometimes the price is a little too high for some of those things that you pick. And I think sometimes about that whole like Icarus effect of like trying to fly too close to the sun. You try to push things a little too far, and you might have wanted to pivot, or you might have wanted to try something else. And then it affects your health or your relationships or your mindset or something, you know? Like I always think about the whole like juggling balls thing, and like a few are glass balls and you really don't want to drop those.
Right.
And
yeah.
sometimes if you really want to launch that 8th ball into the air, which is like achieving greatness and whatever, and you drop your family and your health and everything, and you're like, I'm great now, you know? And it's like, you dropped a lot of important stuff that might not have been worth it. Like, is your Academy Award gonna be with you by your bedside when you're dying? Like, maybe not.
Right. And that's a good point. You know, in this scenario that we're giving, like of saying maybe not hanging out with your friends, we're not saying that you have to shut that off forever, and we're not saying that that's the only way to be successful. However, something probably has to give, and something probably has to change for you to be able to make steady improvements all the time, because shit just gets harder. It gets harder to get leaner. It gets harder to get bigger. It gets harder to be stronger. It gets harder to make more money. Like everything just it amplifies and gets a little bit more difficult. And you know that reach, like, are you overreaching? And that's why it's important that you get a little closer to your goal before you are, you know, really trying to, you know, you overreach for anything, and you're going to get, a lot of times you're going to get hurt. And that's what you have to be, you know, really conscious of. But like what you put in is, you know, it's going to be what you get out. But I just, for myself, you know, I find myself kind of trying to juggle those balls like you're talking about right there, because juggling balls, because
Fish
you know
balls.
you're always trying to improve, always trying to get better. But I guess the main thing is just you know, finding shit that just makes you happy. You know, shit that makes you makes you just feel good, like when you do it, and then you kind of keep track of that, and you're like, I like doing that. I want to figure out how do I get myself to a point where I can do more of that. How do I get myself to a spot where I can do more of that? And I think that's a very healthy thing to think about, and I don't think there's a negative cost on that side of it.
You said something really helpful to me a couple months ago when I came up here and I just hung out with you for a little bit, and you said some really simple things that had a big impact on me. And one of them was just pick 2 or 3 of like the easiest things that you can do that you're not currently doing that'll move you in the right direction. And I was like, that's so damn simple. Like, forget about the correct answer for all of the different things I'm doing in life. Like, what's 2 or 3 things that I can do to move me in the right direction that I'm not currently doing that are easy too? And that's the other thing that was really helpful. It's like everybody always says, like, set lofty goals or set these like huge goals, and everything needs to be at the edge of your capabilities. And it's like, no. How about you actually hit the 5 reps that you're supposed to hit? So let's pick a weight that you can actually hit those 5 reps. And like that kind of became my thinking more in terms of what I'm doing in life right now. Like, let's pick challenges that we can actually hit in the short term. The long term stuff can be crazy for me, but like in the short term, I need to actually do that. Like, that actually needs to get done. So that was really helpful for me.
So yeah, I know you do have probably long-term goals too. Like, are you setting both obviously these easy goals, and do you have bigger things that you're trying to focus on too?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, for me, it's like I've got some like big things that I want to accomplish in the world of acting, and in terms of writing, and in terms of like just contributing to society. So that's like the life stuff. I always like to set yearly goals. That's really fun to look back on at the end of the year and see how it worked out. And then even broken down further from that is just like everything that's kind of going on at the moment, like what's happening. So I just have a little notes sheet on my phone where I just have like all the different little projects that I'm working on, and then what are the next couple steps to take care of. And that's kind of how I like to organize that right now. Like I used to try to schedule almost every minute of my day to have some sort of work, but then I found that having space in between moments is like, it's so much more productive. You can react and shift and like change according to circumstances, and perhaps make a better decision rather than sticking to the plan that might be leading you in the wrong direction, and you wish you could change it, but you're like, I don't want to feel like a flake because I wrote this crap down, you know? So I started giving myself more space and just more flexibility, and that helped a lot too.
That's cool. Do you ever like worry about like financial stuff? Like, do you ever have goals like, okay, by whatever year I want to be like I want my acting to pay all the bills, or stuff like that. Like, is that ever a driving factor for you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely stuff that I'm especially thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Like having different sources of income, like through the books and the online business and the acting and commercial stuff. It's like the first time where I feel like I don't have to only make a living off of one thing. So I can learn how to like make money off of those different things, and then to kind of know how to manage that. So for me right now, it's so simple. Like I'm not at the level where I'm like, where do I invest this and what do I put this into? It's like, no, just save it. Just save as much as you can.
Yeah.
Keep your living expenses really, really low, build it up, build your credit score, all that kind of stuff.
And where did you learn that from? Like keeping the expenses down and that sort of thing? Because I know like, when I was your age, I was like buying cars that I shouldn't have bought and getting myself into silly debt that like I shouldn't have been in. But, listening to you, it's like, damn, I wish I was more like that guy.
I've been very close to wanting to do those things, and I've been this close to like doing that. But I just thought about money as buying myself time, and I remembered like with the whole acting thing, sometimes you make a lot of money, and then sometimes you make no money for 6 months, or you might make like small checks off of commercials and stuff. So I thought about that, and I was like, you know what? If I save as much of this as possible and I just keep living within my cash flow, that was the thing I was thinking about. Like until your cash flow increases, keep your living circumstances at a certain level. It doesn't matter if you make a big check, like just put it away in savings. But to me, it was like, I'm going to keep living within those circumstances until that gets better. But yeah, like that's pretty much where I'm at with that. Like I try to buy myself time with money. That's awesome. What it is. Like if I go into this acting stuff this year and I blow all the money that I've made in the past year, and I buy cars and I do all this kind of stuff, then I'm not buying myself time. And then there's pressure for me to book gigs, and then acting is not fun. And then it's like a job, and then I have to take, agent tells me, hey, you're going to be snorting coke on this one, and then this one you're going to need to be nude, but hey, you got to make that money. And I'd be like, well, crap, why did I get into this, And that was actually a big reason why I had these agents and managers that I'm not going to mention, but they had that mentality. It was like, look, this is work, and if we send you out for these roles where you need to do like sexually explicit stuff that you don't want to do, or it's just like a real filthy kind of character, which I also don't really care to portray. Like I know who my fan base is, and I want to like kind of stick to a certain thing. They didn't like that because they're not used to that in acting. Like most actors will be like, yeah, I'll do whatever it
like
takes.
Desperate.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. So that was a big part of the reason why I decided I don't want to make a living off of acting. I want it to contribute to my income, but I don't want to make a living off of it, because then it's just not fun. It's not as fun, honestly. So, I'd rather make a living off of other things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes have it backwards. They think that they have so much pressure because they have bills, and they may have got themselves into a position that they shouldn't have. So that really sucks. But if you ever want to make money, you have to be successful first, and then money will follow.
Yeah.
So that's the blueprint. Like you need to be, at least the blueprint for like nowadays. Maybe times have changed and things like that over the years. But I think for the moment that we're in now, like be kind of an expert in something or kick ass in something. Maybe you're not the expert, maybe you're not, the go-to person for this or for that, but you're well polished, you're good at it, you have an understanding of it. And Nsima's got a great understanding of training. You have a great understanding of the carnivore diet. So it's easier for people you're providing value for people. Like I want to know more about the carnivore diet, and I'm coming off being vegan. It's like, who's the go-to guy for that? You are. And it's not because you like went to school for it or anything like that. It's because you have been working hard at it. You've been practicing it for a long time. So you have to be a successful person with a successful mindset. And then I know it sounds like you're just like praying for money or something like that, but this is how it works. This is how it happens. In order to like do something great, you have to already be something. You have to have some substance to you. And I think that's what all of us in this room, why we put so much value on training, because the training feels like it's literally a reward back to us on some of the stuff I'm talking about. It's like the only way to like it's the only way to like practice, right? Is to diet correctly, is to say no to certain things at certain times, whether it's, you know, ice cream cake or whether it's certain jobs, or you don't want to ever feel desperate. And I think the worst thing that people can do, especially younger people, time is short, man, you know, in this world. And I think, you know, you're in school for like 10 years. From the time you're 5 until you're like 16 or something, 11 years, whatever that is. Or maybe even a little older, sorry, more like 18. So you're in school for like 12 or 13 years or something ridiculous like that, which I think is way too long. Anyway, this is in the United States, you know, where you're stuck in school forever. And then really, like, when do you start figuring stuff out? Like, I didn't really figure out much, I don't think, until I was like 30. And then, you know, you start to think about that, and a lot of things have already kind of passed at 30. And just shit moves really, really fast. And I think the worst thing that young people can do is be a slave to their bills, you know, to be stuck to their bills. It crushes your freedom. You saying like, I don't want this bill for this car. I don't want this bill for a house. Like I don't think the times that we're in right now,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a smart idea at all. I understand everyone has the dream to like buy a house. But even with my dad being in real estate, I've always been like dumbfounded by even the purchase of a house, period, because I'm like, no one ever really buys it. Like you don't really buy it. You don't really own it. You most of the time, I mean, it's very rare that someone just goes and like buys a house, right? So it's just, those are things to think about. Like if you're trying to find things that you like to do and things that make you feel good and they provide value to you, a good way to shortchange that immediately is to stack up a bunch of bills, because you'll be doing a bunch of work that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Now, there are going to be times where you have to do a lot, you know, a bunch of stuff that you don't love to do. Maybe you'll have to do stuff for free, and maybe you'll have to do certain things a certain way to get momentum for something. But, you know, other than that, you got to figure out how to get your head above water so you can focus in on like, what do I really like? I enjoy doing this podcast. I enjoy giving out information. I love giving out content. I love talking about training. I love helping people with strength and diet and stuff like that. So as I'm going through all this, I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about my products anymore. Like I love them and I created them, but I want, that was just a byproduct of me like lifting and like fucking myself up. And so I made all that stuff to kind of go along with all that stuff. But what I've been passionate about since I was 12 years old was lifting. And right away I got into learning about nutrition, and I've been obsessed with it ever since, because I think this is an awesome way for people in modern times to be practicing like getting better on something without having to, like, you don't need to go to school for it. You don't really need anything else for it. You get to work on it on your own time, your own way.
You were talking about like things that young people can do to actually start to learn about life. And I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I feel like getting out of your home and getting away from your parents, and like when you leave the nest, like leaving it and letting yourself struggle is a really good thing. And I think that if you always feel that security in the back of your mind, that safety net, I don't think that's a good thing. Like I think knowing that it's kind of sink or swim sometimes is really, really helpful, because you just realize like, hey, no one's going to push the ball forward but me. Like no one's going to save me. No one's going to take care of me. Like I have to do this. So it's the same thing with the gym. It's a self-imposed challenge. But I think that's great for a lot of young people. Like if you can leave and go to college somewhere and just like leave home, like that's a great thing. You learn a lot from that.
Do you think that because like nowadays when people look at college, it's a different type of investment depending on where you go, right? But what were your takeaways from that? Like, did you have a goal going in when you were going towards economics? Like, were you trying to go towards a certain job and then you shifted to acting, or what did you get from it exactly?
I went in there so idealistic, like every young person. So I went in there. I remember watching all of the debates in 2004 and then in 2008, and I loved economic policy debates. I was like, man, this is crazy. And I would read about Milton Friedman, and I would read about Keynesian economics, and I'd read about all this stuff. I was like, this is amazing. You could really impact the well-being of like the poorest person in the poorest country based off of like economic policy, free trade, the way that countries like, you can even influence foreign policy based off of economic policy. You know, like you could save lives.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is incredible. Like I would love to learn more about this and like the theory behind it. And I go in and we're doing calculus and we're doing micro econ and finance and accounting. And I'm like, man, this sucks. And I'm doing every single summer. I told myself I would never go home. So I would do internships every summer. So I would work at like a consulting company or an insurance company or an accounting company. And from doing those internships and seeing some of those different options, and also like throughout the school year, I was like super active. I got involved in our economic society. I did mock trial. I did Model UN. I was in all these different orgs, and doing all of those different things showed me like, this isn't really where you see your life. Like, I don't think this is really what I want to do. I don't want to write papers. I don't want to be, working at the Federal Reserve. I don't want to be a professor. I don't want to be working in an office, and all of those kind of like. I remember having a call with my dad when I was doing this long internship at Liberty Mutual, and I called my dad and I was like, "Man, Dad, it feels like I'm in prison." That's honestly what it feels like. Like every single day I'm here and I look at the eyes of everyone around me and they're dead inside. Like I said, honestly, like their souls have been sucked from them. And they would ask me, they'd be like, "So, why do you want to work here?" And I would BS them and tell them like, hey, I think it's a great opportunity, blah, blah, blah. I could see myself doing this in the future. And they're like, no, don't. Like, they're like, go. You're young. Like, and a lot of them
Other people are like,
they would honestly tell me like, hey, I did this out of college and, it paid and now I got a family and I got a husband and like, I just kind of fell into it.
That
and
same
I was like,
shit happened to me, bro.
Dude,
same exact thing.
And as soon as you could leave, you run.
Yeah.
Like you run. Like that's what it was for me. Like that last year of college, I realized I'm at a crossroads here. And doing the Liberty Mutual thing, I realized, look, I'm actually okay if I had to work Starbucks or drive a Lyft or sleep in my car instead of doing this. I said, if I have to like just be totally homeless, in America, I'm a young man, I work hard, so I know that it's never gonna be that bad. There's soup kitchens, there's cup noodles, I'm fine. So if I can bring my standard of living that far down to where I could do anything I want, I was like, why don't I do anything I want? So what do I want? And why don't we throw everything into whatever I wanna do? Because I have the freedom. I have no obligations to anyone. I don't have any debts. I don't have any bills to pay. It's just me, a young single man that can like pursue his goals. So that last year of college, that's why I was like so obsessed, because I was like, holy crap, if this doesn't work, I'm back to that office, Like it was a huge motivator for me. So that was kind of like one of the big reasons why I really, really pushed hard on that. But you were asking about like, why did I get into econ and where did I want to go with that? I really loved like kind of more international stuff. I like global policy. I love the idea of maybe working for the UN at some point, getting involved with, like one of those organizations, World Bank, things like that. I didn't like the idea of like working in like domestic policy or like day-to-day kind of things. So that's what I wanted to do. But then I started to like shift my vision around through acting and through gaining influence and through writing books and starting to build up my profile and starting to build up some accomplishments and like creating a name for myself. I could, in the long term, have the same sort of impact that I wanted to have through economics, simply by using like celebrity and status and influence to be able to promote some of the ideas I have around economics, to be able to promote, just things like that. So that's always kind of been like a long-term thing. Like, how can I serve people through building up like a profile or something like that?
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, I think what like the big thing.
The kratom's hitting, by the way.
Oh yeah, you feel it.
My legs are warm.
Nice. Should we all just stop and hug?
I'm feeling it right now, man.
I thought you were serious. Okay, well.
Yeah, bring it in, guys.
Hey.
I love you guys.
Oh, you guys are the best. We'll all cry.
That's that kratom hug. But dude,
that kratom.
I think if any like teenager or college student immediately can get themselves into an internship in whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because when I ended up in the hospital, doctors were telling me the same shit. They're like, wait, yo, you think of other things you want to do before before settling on this, because you're going to be spending a lot of time here.
Yep.
I have a family. I'm stuck. I can't leave. The check's too big. If there's something else you want to do, go try that out first.
Yeah.
Like if you can somehow get into that job and just see how it is, that's so huge.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
That was the biggest thing I learned in college, and that's what I always tell my little siblings. Like the classes, yes, you do your best, you get good grades, but it was everything I did outside of that, meeting people and networking and learning to talk to people and learning how to go to an interview and like conduct yourself well, learning how to show up on time to things. Like all of those kind of things, that was what I really learned from college. Just how to be an adult, how to manage my own affairs. No one's going to do your laundry. No one's going to make your bed. No one's going to take care of that. Nobody's cooking for you. So you either eat junk food or you cook your own food. Like all of that kind of stuff. I think it's super helpful. Like I always tell young people, try to go to college if you can. Like don't start working immediately. If you can go to college, even if you're going to end up racking up some debt, I think that you might make such a return on the investment of what you learn in college, especially if you take advantage of it. If you're not like always partying and if you're not always like slacking off and trying to live it up, do those things, because that's the other time when you can do that. You know, you can't do that when you have a wife and kids. Like go have fun, go to a few parties, enjoy yourself. Don't do anything you're going to regret. I love when people say don't do anything I wouldn't do. That's like the best saying. But yeah, like do those things and then also work really, really hard on networking, meeting people, going to your professor's office hours, asking questions, like trying to build up your career stuff. Because everybody should know by now that the old model of get your degree and then land a job off of interviews your senior year is not really happening, you know, like even for engineers, even for people in, you know, like the sciences, it's not even happening for a lot of them. People that do CS and stuff.
Ted Neiman, that's how he ended up in doing what he's doing, because he said he couldn't get a job.
And do you want to trust your future to like the health of the economy, you know? Like that's really, really risky. So just do a lot of stuff when you're in college, like really think about it and like spend your time wisely and get things done. I had fun in college, but I also like worked hard. So I think it's a really, really good experience for young people to have.
I think we end up spending like about 20 years or so, and sometimes even more, which is crazy. It's wild, like to think that you spend 20 years learning stuff from school, you know, and then it kind of shapes everybody to be similar in a weird way. What it ultimately does, what I see it doing, and there's a million positive things and beyond that it does as well. But on the kind of negative side, what I see is it reminds me of just like, you know, running in sand versus like running on a flat surface. You're gonna tire yourself out. I don't know about you guys, but like when I was about 15, like I was fucking pissed. Like I was like full of piss and vinegar, and I would love to still be that way, but you can't be, because you get fatigued by just the whole. Just because I was a fucking teenager. Like, aren't all teenagers mad? No, just like
you just aggressive?
No. I didn't like fight people and shit like that. But I was just I was just, I don't know, more aggressive. You know, I played football and stuff like that. But like, I just mean like I don't know. I felt like I had a lot more energy to be pissed about something. You know, if you said something to me, I wouldn't fight you over it, because I'm not that kind of person. I'm not gonna like get in a fist fight, but I would argue like crazy. I'd be like, no, that's not the way. You know, now I'm just like, whatever. I don't fucking care. Whatever he thinks is fine. I'm gonna go about my fucking day. But what I see is like a lot of people, like you said, you were really into like economics, and it's cool that you developed a swerve around to continue in that field. But a lot of times that dream dies because of the bullshit process that you have to go through. And it's like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to work with the state legislator, and then I need to go. And then by the time you get around all these suits and all these people and all this conformity, you're like, fuck this.
And they all tell you that their dream died too, and they're like, that's the way it is. And you're like, really? Like that's the way it is? Right. Well, crap. Like my dream died too. And I remember in high school, I was thinking, damn, man, when you were young, you had dreams of like, you thought you could be an actor one day, and you thought like you could achieve all these different things. And like, damn, like this is not where it's headed. Like you're going to go to UCSD, study econ, and then go get a job. Like this sucks. Like what happened to all those dreams? And like once I tasted that there was that opportunity, I was like, ooh, there's a fork in the road and I could take it right now, but I have to like get on that train right now. I was like, oh crap, I got to do this. like, because the great thing was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Really? Like, I just didn't think it was that bad. Like, we live in America, you know, like this isn't, you know, like a completely impoverished third world country where, you know, you're like, oh, I'm going to go be an actor. And they're like, good luck, man. Like, good luck even getting a job here. Like, it's not that. Like, there's all these different safety programs. And there's, you know, if you've got family, that's fantastic. You can always crash on somebody's couch. If you have a car, like, what a blessing. You could sleep in your car. There's like so many things you could do. So if you ever get the chance, I do think living like the life of your dreams and doing what you love for a living is kind of a luxury. And I think you could probably build your way into that, like, you know, the whole side hustle thing and stuff like that. You could probably build your way into it. But, you know, when you got kids and a significant other and all that kind of stuff, like, that's a tough decision to make. And like, now it's not just you following your dreams, it's your family sacrificing for your dreams. So yeah, like I hope nobody's feeling like regret or like any sort of wistful sadness listening to this, but like, I think that honestly, I do think that those opportunities will come up a few times in life though. I don't think that that thing only rolls around once and that's it. And you missed it and like, well, I'm screwed now. There will be a few times when you can seize opportunities that will move you in the direction of your dreams. And it's probably always going to make your heart flutter. And you're probably always going to feel like, ooh, this is kind of risky. Like, do I do this? And that's when you sit down and you have the talk with the wife and you talk to the kids and then you say like, hey, this is something I really want to do. And hopefully they're understanding enough to let you do it. And if you're young, like just swallow it and do it, like do it, you know, and it's terrifying. Yeah. It's supposed to be terrifying. Like that's the thing that people don't talk about that like go for their dreams and stuff. Like they don't talk about how scary it is when you're like afraid that your whole family is going to think you're a bum, like you're some starving artist. Like what happened to this like proud econ kid that like we sent off and we tell everybody now he's not getting a degree and now he's going to be an actor and living in LA like
Were they
every
supportive,
other.
by the way?
Super supportive.
Okay.
That's like, you always talk about like being the product of good parenting and how you want to provide that for your audience. Like that's a huge blessing. My mom is like Patton or something. She's like this lady that like the biggest cheerleader in my life. So yeah, I remember when I brought it up to her.
Stopping people at the grocery store to tell them about your cookbook and stuff like that. Probably like that. That's my mom.
Exactly.
You got to read this Jacked and Tan book. It's amazing.
Look at my son.
Yes. At church.
Look at what muscles he's got.
Telling the priest at church, do you watch Power Rangers? That sort of thing. So it's like
you're like, Mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely, man. That's my dad.
Awesome.
Yeah, his birthday is on the 14th, and I just drove in last night, and I saw him this morning. And
shit, man, he ain't messing around with that tan.
No, yeah, I'm not messing around with the editing, is what it was.
Your shoulders,
yeah.
bro. Like your shoulders are bouldery. Like
he actually has a better frame. Like my mom kind of sized me down a little bit. She's like a small lady. He's actually got a really solid frame. He got up to like 2 something.
Ooh.
And yeah, he used to lift, like I've got some pictures of him when he was young. I think everybody has this story about their dad though, but he used to be pretty swollen jacked. But the cool thing is he is now, I think a month or a month and a half into lifting again. That's why I brought him here. So he's been talking about this for the longest time and I always kind of drag him to the gym, but he's been doing it totally on his own. And then he just started going to Zumba classes, which we're all having a huge laugh off of because he's like the most shy, reserved kind of dude. But yeah, he was here recently. It was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. If like, cause I've talked about this a little bit before, I'm gonna make this short, but like my mom, culturally, Nigerians are extremely academic, school oriented, you know, that realm. When I left school, I never told her, but
nice.
I
still don't know.
I didn't tell her when I left because like that would have been scary. But like, when I did tell her and I was working at the time at a gym, she was just like, okay, she was just like, just make sure that like, you know what you're doing, that you have a pathway, right? Just parents got to support their, like, just give them encouragement when they're young. Don't just shit on the dream. Cause I have a lot of friends whose parents just shat all over what they wanted to do because it wasn't necessarily normal.
That's so negative too.
I don't think parents, I don't think they even realize it.
Yeah.
I don't think they realize that, you know, I'm a big fan in just about everything I do in really actually never saying no. Like I'd rather confuse people than to say no. I'd rather them walk away and be like, I don't know what that was about, rather than to say no. Because, you know, if somebody, if somebody, that works here or something is looking for a certain salary or something, I'm not going to be the person that's going to say like, nah, absolutely not. Because I feel that you can reach that values that you've laid out.
Yeah.
And I also heard what you said, and I recognize why you're saying that, because you feel that that's what you should be valued at. And I think a lot of times with kids, I don't think we realize that, man, you really are hurting, like you're crushing them. Like you're not valuing what they said. And there's nothing worse as a little kid, and even as great as my parents were and as great as my brothers were, and we were all loving family and everything, I can like vividly remember the times that like my spirit's been crushed, or they said, get out of here. We're watching a rated R movie or something, like, they just don't want you around, or they don't feel like you fit in or whatever for that time period. That kind of stuff, man, it feels bad. And I think a lot of times a parent, they're thinking like, go to college. I need you to go to college. I need you to do A, B, and C. And then when you go to them and like, are even trying to say that you want to do something different, they could really be crushing your dreams without even really saying that. I don't know. They just tell you that you can't, type of thing. Like, no, that's not the way you're going to do it. You're doing it this way. And I think that you end up, kind of leaving the kid feeling kind of empty, and just not feeling very good, actually,
Yeah, and I think that like where parents, I guess in my experience, I was always into cars, so I'm like, hey, like parents, I want to go to UTI, University Technical Institute, whatever. It's like mechanic school. And they're like, no, we don't want you to be a mechanic. Like, that's a terrible idea. Like, all right, guess I'm not doing that. I've always loved cooking. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I think maybe like culinary school or something, because college just wasn't in the equation. Like, I didn't want to go to traditional school. Same thing. Like, nah, you're not a cook. Like, you're not going to do that. I'm like, fuck, okay, I guess I'm not. And they're totally right. I would have hated being a mechanic. I would have probably disliked trying to like cook food and stuff. But we don't know what that could have led to. Yeah. And I think that like my parents were like so like simple-minded to be like, oh my gosh, if he does that, he's going to hate his life. Like we're going to do everything we can to make sure he doesn't do that. But when I look at my daughter now, like she wanted to do a certain type of dance class instead of the one that like I was hoping she would do. But it's like, well, maybe this will lead to something else. Yeah. And like it, in a weird way, it led to her saying she wants to do jujitsu. So I'm super stoked about that. I know one of the happiest days that a dad could ever experience. So we're gonna sign her up for jujitsu. But if I would have just been like, no, you're doing this dance class and that's it, it wouldn't have led to her admitting that like she kind of just wasn't really into dance anymore and she wants to do jujitsu. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like just like the nightmare I had of thinking like if I had stopped that conversation right then and there, like the way my parents did, it would have been like, oof, like man, that's scary. But it led to something else. So I think that's something what like parents can also think of is like, okay, you don't want your son to be a hippie in a van with a band, but like, hey, maybe on the way he gets in touch with like a manager and he starts managing these hippies or something, and he's the man, he's making all the money while they're out traveling or whatever, because like if you just think simple-minded, you're gonna miss out so much.
One of the things I learned is like if you communicate in a way that your parents will actually like realize that you're like, if you really take your time with it, instead of like, hey mom, I want to go be an actor. But if like what I did before I ever told her that I was going to leave college or go into acting, I started doing stuff already. So she saw that
you were into
for one, I'm not
sure.
really asking her, but I would like her to approve of it. But two, it's like, I'm not thinking about doing this. I'm not dreaming about it. It's not like a nice idea or let's see how this goes. It's like, I'm actually putting work into this. It's like the same thing with any sort of pitch, like you kind of have to prove something.
You got to earn your stripes first and then
a little bit. It's like a kid that wants a new car and all they've ever exhibited is like irresponsible behavior, So sometimes like you do have to kind of earn their ability to trust you, and they might say no. and this sounds terrible, but they might not really mean no. Like it might just be a matter of time until you've proven to them that like you're able to do something, and then they realize like, okay, you know, we can trust him with this. Like every parent has that like, oh, this is the responsible kid, and this one's a wild one, and like you get these labels, and then the kids are like, yeah, I guess I'm the wild one, and I guess I'm the responsible one, and you live within that. Yeah. Parenting, damn.
Yeah, it's certainly it ain't easy, you know. And I what I've seen, you know, sometimes people just getting like crushed. You know, an example would be like you're at a pool party, and the kid wants to like jump off the diving board because he sees the older kids jumping off the diving board, and maybe the kid has 2 left feet. Like maybe the kid honestly is not very coordinated, and maybe the kid, you know, you've seen your own kid like, you know, hurt himself a bunch of times. The worst thing though you can do is to say you're not jumping off that diving board, you know. And some parents take it even further. They'll actually say like you're not coordinated, you know. That's terrible. That is not. I know, but they don't realize. Like I mean, I kind of think that's like almost the equivalent of like abuse, you know, in some way, because when you hear that over and over again, then you're like, okay, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, and you add it all up, and you're like, I can't do much of anything. And an easier thing to do would say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go in the pool in a few minutes. And when I go in, I'd love for you to jump off the diving board, but I'd love you to jump to me, you know, or you figure out some sort of compromise, or we're going to jump in together. We're going to do it. You know, we're going to do these things together. And with my kids, you know, my wife is really good at saying no, because sometimes you do have to literally just say no. But my kids know like I'm the sucker in the family, and they can come to me and they can get like whatever they want, sort of thing. But I always like to try to find some middle ground, and I've just learned for myself like it leads to just a more peaceful life in general. When someone asks for something, I don't really say no. I try to start to think in my head, how do I meet this person at least halfway? Even though I kind of think this is kind of dumb, I still want to be able to. I want the person that asked me the question, I want them to understand that I value them and I heard what they said. And so I'm going to try to meet, you know, can I realistically meet them? I mean, sometimes it's just absolutely no, I can't do it, or you can't do something. But even last night, my daughter's like, she's like, I've been kind of locked up in the house all day. I was like, you weren't really locked up in the house. You were on your phone, and I was available all day to do whatever you wanted, you know. And it's like 7:00, and I'm thinking like, I want to start to work my way towards bed. We got some early stuff we're doing here today. And she's like, can we go to downtown Davis? And I was like, you know, it's like 15 minutes or so, 15-minute drive. So 15 there, 15 back, half an hour, and then hanging out down there for half an hour. I was like, you know what? Let's just get in a car and like just go for a ride. You know, and then so we went for a ride. I dropped my son off at his friend's house because he was bored as hell too. And then I was like, yeah, we're halfway there. Shit, let's go downtown. So we went downtown, went for a walk. We walked together. Her and I spent time together for, 90 minutes, and it was awesome. You know, it was cool. And so I'm always trying to figure out a way to try to just, you know, value something that somebody's saying and pay attention to it. And you know, from a parenting standpoint and from a business owner standpoint, like, okay, I heard what you said. You want to make $70K a year. I heard that. And you're currently not anywhere near that at the moment. I'm not going to necessarily say no. I might say, okay, if we can work towards these things right here, I'm going to give you a bump right now. And after 6 months, we can look this over. And if you were able to follow through on a lot of this stuff and we're both feeling good about it, boom, we'll bump you up to exactly what you asked for. That kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes, like I said, sometimes it just can't. But
they just want the opportunity to get to that, you know?
People just want to be heard, too.
Yeah.
They just want to be heard.
That's really powerful, though, that you give them things that they can do, you know, rather than saying, like, we'll see how you do at the end of the year. And it's super vague. And they're like, well, what do I do? But you give them, like, hey, if you do these things, you will definitely be $70K worth, you know?
Yeah, well, these are all like learned things. You know, I had to learn these things because I'm vague in general, I guess. Like I'm kind of just vague all the time, you know, but because I want people to be like self-starters and stuff, but it's complicated, you know? Why are you going to be a self-starter for somebody else? You know, because they ultimately work for me, right? They work for here. We're all kind of in it together. But then it's a matter of, it's really truly a matter of hiring the right people, which is a whole different podcast in and of itself. But when you hire the correct people, if you get someone who's excited about engineering the podcast, then there's not a lot of conversation about how to get Andrew more hyped up to do podcasting because he's already into it. If I had somebody else who maybe just doesn't care about podcasting that much, and it was something we had to like force and we had to get him fired up and excited to do it, that's going to sputter, and that person's going to feel underpaid and overworked, like over and over.
Always,
and it's just going to be, it's just not going to work out very well.
It's great when you could do something for work that you would do for free, you know? Like, it was so easy for me to take free acting gigs because I'm like, this is fun. I would do this regardless, and it's giving me experience. I had a lot of people when I was about to do the Power Rangers gig that were like, don't sign the contract. And like agents were saying that because like, it's not the greatest contract as an actor. And I have a lawsuit coming to me right now for saying that.
Oh no.
No, I'm kidding. They're crazy. But it's like one of those things where they're like, yeah, you know, you could probably hold out for something different or better. But to me, it was like, man, all I see are pluses. All I see is experience that I would pay to get. I would pay to do this show. So why would I not sign this contract? Like it didn't make any sense to me. So for me, like I remember a lot of days on set where, you know, if there was ever any grumblings in the cast about like pay or hours or anything like that, it was like, I just felt like work me harder. Like you use whatever you want out of me. Cause I'm very, very glad to be here. And I wanted to show them that. Yeah.
Real quick, our buddy Luis Pena has a birthday this week, and he said that you are his favorite Power Ranger.
Oh man!
So if we can get a shout out birthday to Luis.
Luis, happy birthday, man! Hope you have a good one.
Yeah. And then he had another question about like your diet and your training and stuff. How much like cardio do you implement throughout like your week? Like, and like what type of cardio do you do?
Yeah, so 3 days a week it's lifting, and then pretty much every other day, I take one day off, but every other day, so 3 days a week I'll do cardio. I do like zone 2 cardio, which is basically just a light jog, or, you know, you could go hiking and do things like that, but I just go for a light jog for usually 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes up to 60 minutes if I feel like it, but yeah, it's not a huge calorie burn, honestly. It's not too bad. And because it's so low intensity, it's like very lipolytic. So you're not tapping into too much like glycogen. So I still feel good the next day in the gym. The only things I have to pay attention to are making sure I'm getting in the sodium, the water. So refilling some of the water weight that I lost through the sweating and through the running. But it's not like burning through all my glycogen stores.
Do you pay attention to your heart rate when you do that? Or you just pay attention to expenditure, like how you're feeling?
How I'm feeling now.
Okay.
So when I started it, I used to do like the heart rate monitor, and it's like 180 minus your age, and you stay at or below that. But then what I started doing was, can I run at a pace that I'm able to only breathe through my nose? And once I got that down, then I just started like, all right, I know the intensity, so let's just relax with it. And it's really just running at the most comfortable pace possible. You know, so that's kind of what I do.
It's actually kind of annoying because you're like, I want to go, like, because you want to go faster. Yeah, you want to go faster, or you want to go slower. You're like, I kind of feel like walking,
yeah,
you know, or I kind of feel like I'd rather like sprint one of these, you know. But it's really effective. I've done it a bunch, and I actually am kind of practicing that now, where I'm doing kind of like a walk run. So I try to keep, and what I'm learning from that is like if I run like quote unquote too fast, if I run too fast, then it slows my walk down too much. So it's like I go at a pretty good pace with the walk, where it's like, you know, maybe about almost 4 miles an hour, moving pretty good. And then I might kind of do like a light jog just because I get bored, you know. So like every 30, I'm not doing a hit thing though. I'm not going all in and like revving the treadmill up to, you know, 15 miles an hour or anything crazy like that. It's just a moderate pace. But yeah, I do find it to be super effective. And then breathing through the nose is actually really interesting too, because anytime you like overdo it, you're like, oh shit, like I got some pretty good oxygen debt going on right now.
Yeah. And you feel it in your brain. Like if you're going too fast, you'll actually get a headache if you're just doing the nose breathing. So I think honestly, like if you want to go a little faster and your body's really telling you like,
feel
hey,
okay for it,
yeah,
for it.
like I got it in me right now. Like, let me just go a little bit faster. You do that. And then 2 days later, when you're running again, you don't feel it and you relax a little bit and you just kind of like work with your body a little bit. If you're not like doing a competition or something.
What are you doing with your lifts? Bench and squat and deadlift and that kind of stuff?
Pretty much all the compounds. It's like basically I stopped programming my own stuff. I just started using this thing called Fitbod, and I just picked one of their programs. It's like the bodybuilding template, and I focused on the compounds, and then I said throw in some accessories, and it's a push day, pull day, leg day. So yeah, just 3 lifting days a week. I've been considering throwing in yoga. And the reason why is like all of those little things that you're supposed to do around your training, like working your external rotators and working your lower back and doing bridges and like working your adductors and abductors and all that kind of stuff, like the little things that I say to do at the end of the workout and I don't do. I'm like, man, yoga hits a lot of those. And I'll be able to hit my posture, upward dog, downward dog, like stretching, you know? So I want to include that, and I'm kind of toying with the idea.
You should. Yeah, you should definitely do some yoga. And I would even say like look into some yin yoga, because I think you would like kind of the weirdness of it, because it's really just it's kind of the practice of like just sitting still, you know, getting still. There's some meditative part. I mean, a meditative part of all of yoga really, but it's a lot less dynamic than regular yoga, which can be fun because you get to move a lot more, and the intensity is much higher, so it's a bigger challenge, which you would have absolutely no problem with. But yin yoga is like it's mainly like it's pretty grounded. You're pretty much on the ground the entire time. But for you, I could see it being valuable because it's like, no, William, like you're just gonna slow the fuck down. You know, that's what we're gonna do for the next 60 minutes. You're not going fast. You're not going hard. You're chilling, you know? So I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
That was something I realized when the first time I came here and we were lifting, and you know, Mr. like superset circuit, let's do this, let's do that. And everybody's benching, and in between benching, everybody just hangs out. And I was like, what is this? This is great.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it totally makes sense. You know, you take your time with it and you focus on what you're doing for the purpose. Like, you don't need to stack on other stuff. So you told me to listen to Jim Rohn and Jordan Peterson last time we talked in Davis. And I've been doing that religiously. And Jim Rohn says, concentrate. He says, don't write the letter when you're in the shower. When you're in the shower, enjoy the shower. When you're at work, work. When you go to the beach with the family, be at the beach with the family. Don't bring the briefcase. Like, that was huge, because I kind of, and not to diss Gary Vee, I love Gary Vee, but I kind of got into this mindset of like, you should always be working. Like if you're not where you want to be, like why are you relaxing? You need to hustle more. So I would try to saturate every second with like this ongoing question in my mind of what should I be doing right now? And it was always like, well, why aren't you responding to those emails you should have responded to? Like, do that now. So, you know, you stop at a light and you check your phone. Did you get a text? Boom. And then you're going again. Like, you never just kind of, let's do this at this time. Let's do that at that time. And then I thought about the way I lift, and I'm like, well, I'm not like hitting jump squats every second of the day and like always trying to, like, I have a time for that and I have a time for this. So let me have like a work time. Let me have a time to relax at the end of the day. I don't need to be working up until the second I go to sleep just so I feel like, you know, and you're so stressed out. You're like, I definitely had a productive day. And it's like, you could have condensed that and like really smashed it in the time allotted.
Yeah.
And then just like breathe, you know, and have those different moments. So that was helpful. Like I really took a lot out of, and Jim Rohn's so charming too. He's so like easy to listen to. He's like
weird.
Johnny Carson.
He gets me fired up somehow, and he's not yelling, or it's not like a CT Fletcher video or anything like that. Well, something that I feel is important on that same note is when you are other, you know, quote unquote other places, you know, when you're on the beach with your kids and you're texting, or you're, you know, in the shower thinking about like work, or you're at work and you're thinking about being like, it's really weird how that all happens. Like wherever you are, you're thinking of like the opposite thing somehow, or
you know, your diet.
Yeah. If you're at work, you're going to be thinking about being at home. And sometimes when you're at home, you're thinking about work. And then what truly happens is you really end up being nowhere. You know, you kind of end up really not being anywhere, because you're like half present and trying to multitask and trying to juggle too many things at one time.
Yeah, you chase two things, you end up with none.
You end up with nothing.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm trying to get better at that too, but you know,
Or think about like
awareness is just crucial, I think.
the goals that we have, like for you being lean, and like you think about what is life going to be like when I'm lean, and you think of all the benefits and things like that, and how you're going to feel, and then you're lean, and the second you look at yourself in the mirror and you've hit that lean goal, you're like, okay, what's next? Let's get bigger. And you never took a second to be like, man, this is incredible. Like here I am in this moment. I achieved this. Let's enjoy this. Let's celebrate it a little bit. Let's have fun with it. It's like you're always living in the future, and this moment doesn't ever exist. It's just like, well, if I enjoy this moment, then I'm not going to be creating for the future, you know?
I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's how I think a lot of people feel. It's like you always have to be living for the future to ever have anything in the present. But it's like, you know, where does that get you when you're on your deathbed, you know? And what future then do you have to live for? Because you never live for the present moment.
Yeah, and where does it get you on your deathbed when you didn't hang out with your friends because you were so obsessed with increasing your bench or being better at something?
Because you thought it would make you more jacked and you'd feel more confident around your friends and you'd be more accomplished because you're the badass of the group, but you never hang out with them anyway.
No, and none of them, right. And none of them give a fuck about your bench press
none
anyway.
Of them care. They would have loved you the same anyway. It's weird.
Yeah. I will say though, my parents for sure, but like the rest of my family, my fiance showed them a picture, like a progress picture, and I could have told them like, yeah, I can deadlift 315 now, like for reps, and they're like, okay, is that cool? Is that good? It
means nothing to them. Yeah.
But abs are a universal language.
Yeah.
People are like, oh shit, you're in shape now. It's like, dude, I've been doing this for so many years, and now like, okay, fine. Little do they know I'm like the lightest I've been in like 4 years though.
Yeah.
But you know,
They're like, damn, you got so much bigger. You're like,
yep. I've been getting that a lot too. So
that's one thing though. When you look at the cover of this book, you look like you're 200 fucking pounds.
Yeah, man.
150 there.
I know, that's the crazy
Max.
thing, man.
got some good bicep peak there, buddy.
And those shoulders, I've talked about those on the
That's
previous
okay.
podcast too.
You messed up everything.
Messed up.
The shoulders,
Yeah.
Again.
I feel like everything I do goes to my shoulders. Like when I'm benching, and this isn't good. I should be retracting more, but I can feel my front delts are just like powering through it.
How about like cable flies too?
Yeah, I'm working on like pulling them back for that and like squeezing the chest and doing these things like I think Sven presses where you have like a plate and you're just
those are tough.
Those are terrible. I wonder if it's a lean guy thing because I feel it in my shoulders big time too.
Yeah, it compensates I think for a lot.
Do you still do any martial arts training like nowadays or not?
Not really. I was considering getting back into Muay Thai, but not really. Like I feel like I just want to do whatever it takes to hit my acting goals this year. So I feel like for me, there may be like some tricking involved. There may be like, maybe I'll do some like stunt kind of training.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not going to do anything outside of it that I don't need to do.
Gotcha.
Because I think it's going to take a good chunk of time.
I liked a little bit about what you were saying about, about free, about like how you would just kind of do something, like the Power Ranger, Power Ranger deal that you got. I think that's a really powerful thing, and I think that for a lot of people, if they could just wrap their mind around, what are these things that you do in your day to day that are free, that you really enjoy, that are legitimate things that maybe you could figure out a way to do more often, or to turn into money, to turn into like financial gain of some sort, or maybe you can figure out a way to do more of it through having financial gain somewhere else. Like you're mentioning having multiple revenue streams. Like that's really smart. I think, in today's world of e-commerce and being able to people to order stuff online, I think that's great. Like if you do online training and then maybe you have t-shirts and hats to go with it. It's just like it's like, okay, I did that, and now there's this extra revenue stream that people can support. Because I think sometimes it feels weird. We feel weird selling shit, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel weird. You make stuff, and if people want to buy it, it's up to them. Yeah, and you shouldn't really be too caught up on the logistics of it, and you shouldn't be too caught up on it whether you're being annoying with like selling shit to people, because people will just make up their own mind their own way on if they want to purchase it or not.
Yeah, like you are providing a service, and I would not write plans for people, and I would not create like, carnivore training guides or eating guides and things like that if I wasn't getting paid for it. So nobody would ever have the information that I created in those guides if I wasn't being paid for it. But because I'm being paid for it, it's like, sure, I'll take the time to like sit down and come up with a plan for you and work with you on a weekly basis. And it's providing a service that they wouldn't otherwise have. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And the other thing too, is people could follow like all the stuff that you put out on Instagram and stuff, and they could piece it together if they wanted to do it for free.
Yeah.
They'd be like, all right, well, he eats a lot of meat. All right, write that down. And you talked about your training. And I think that there's many people like that nowadays that are giving a lot of information, and you could piecemeal it together through going to YouTube and through piecing together something they put on their Twitter and piecing together this and that, and you could probably end up with a great program. But it's sometimes just easier to and more organized is to say, I'm just going to pay the guy and have him write shit out for me.
I think it's great to do both. Like, you should give everything out that you have. Like, I think I like the idea of giving out all your secrets, you know? Because one of the things is like, a lot of the time people aren't really going to do it anyway, you know? So it's not like the ones that pay are the ones that actually like really want to take that step forward. Like one guy that I followed for a while, Keno Body, Greg O'Gallagher, who you guys should have him on the podcast. That'd be awesome.
Cool.
But he's a really solid dude. So I watched pretty much every single one of his videos in college because I didn't want to pay for his programs. And when I finally had the money to pay for his programs, I bought every single one of them because I loved his information. You know, so sometimes there's that like long-term return on putting out that amount of content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's big into fasting too. I think he was doing that like back in 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. But yeah, man.
The real Bruce Wayne.
Uh-huh.
That's a classic video.
That was a classic.
Oh, that's him?
That's him.
Okay, now
That's
I know
from
what you're talking about.
Canada.
Yeah.
Canadier.
Mm-hmm.
What you got over there, Andrew?
Somebody was on Twitter actually. Shout out to people on Twitter at MB Power Project. Was just curious about like you had said something about like the fattier meats were actually making you kind of like keep more fat on, or was he okay? Why do you think that? I just said that like maybe it's like a lean body thing, because I know once I started having lower fat and adding carbs, granted my diet it has been nearly perfect, so that has more to do with it than anything, but I felt better. I felt like I was still retaining like the pump in the gym, and I didn't feel heavy. Now it's hard for a thin guy to feel heavy, but like I just did. I felt like it weighed me down. So do you think that maybe that has something to do with why like the fattier cuts of meat weren't really like agreeing with your body in the way you wanted it to be?
I think so, man. Like the way that I think about it is just like you have a bigger glycogen or like you have that glycogen storage capacity. So when you're switching out some of the fat energy calories for some carbs in there and then a little bit less fat, you're going to fill up a lot of those glycogen stores, especially if you burn through them. If you say forget the carbs, it's going to be all fat. Well, all of that is going into your body fat to be burned at a later time. So that's kind of like one of the main ways that you're storing it. You're still going to create glycogen off of that, but I just feel like bringing carbs in and what that does for the muscles and bringing water into the muscles, like it's even sort of an effect. Like it's sort of an illusion too. You just look a little bit leaner because you're a little bit more filled out. The water's in the muscle. So I might not have actually been leaner. You know, it might have just been like an effect. And I know that bringing in carbs a lot of the time can help decrease your cortisol and get rid of some water retention. So that could have been part of it too. Like I might have just been retaining some water in my abs. You bring in the carbs, you drop the stress in the body, and you flush out a little bit of water. So
this is not real science, and I'm sure someone could come in and slaughter me. But if you just try to think about it this way, that like where is glycogen stored mainly? I realize it can be like in your liver and it can be some other places, but it's mainly in your muscles, right? Your glycogen's in your muscles. And then where's your fat stored?
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of think about it that way. You have an overabundance of anything and you start to overeat on anything. That's going to lead you to gain weight in a way that you probably don't want, maybe with the exception of protein. But if you start eating, you know, really high fat, and you're still over consuming food because they're delicious, right? That's kind of the thing. But when I did the three ribeyes for 3 days in a row, it was like near impossible to eat 3 ribeyes. I mean, I love meat, I love ribeyes, but by the second day, and it was only a 3-day experiment. By day 2, I was chopping the one in half, so I really only ate 2 per day. But if you do have a big appetite and you're able to hammer down some of these foods, then maybe you can still end up overeating. Like, can you overeat on a keto diet? Of course you can. Can you overeat if you're trying to do a lean down version of a keto diet? That gets to be really hard. If you start to kind of quote unquote trim the fat away, now you're talking about a challenge. Like, that gets to be really hard. Like, if you're only having steaks that are leaner, now that's not a great long-term diet anyway, because you're going to feel like shit very, very soon after. But how would you not feel like shit? A great way to not feel like shit would be to either add the fat back in or to add some carbohydrates in there.
Yeah, and what a cool thing to like bring to people's attention that you couldn't eat 3 ribeyes 3 days in a row.
Yeah,
like I know you had challenged people like, hey, let's do this. And somebody who might be overweight is probably like, deal, like, oh, come on, that's easy.
You're right,
but try it.
It was kind of hard. I mean, they were pretty good size, but yeah, it was fucking tough. I mean, I guess if I really wanted to dedicate myself to it, I could probably do it.
Yeah.
But even with like trying to fast and trying to like, I tried doing one in the morning, and I tried doing one at lunch and then one at dinner. And by the time I got to dinner, I was like, I just don't even care. I don't care about food at all. I feel totally fine.
Yeah.
Then I tried spacing it out, and I tried fasting and trying to do like almost all of it towards the end of the day, like a double dinner, and like that didn't work. It was hard.
Yeah. And it's funny. So like the episode that went up today on YouTube and iTunes with Laura and Chris Spath, she has kind of a similar story about when she was actually vegan or vegetarian, I'm not sure. And she just went on a cheat. She had a ribeye. So kind of like you, you had one thing going, and then you tried a different thing. She never went back. She's like, this, I feel so good all of a sudden. It's like, oh, all the sodium and all the things that you were talking about, like the vitamins finally getting into your body. She experienced the same thing, and she never went back. And her thing is she just has one ribeye every single day. And it's like, that's all she needs. It's amazing. That whole episode's incredible. Everybody needs to check that out right after this podcast.
Man, I like that. One ribeye every single day. That's so simple. It doesn't get more simple than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that I find cool about your story is, the acne thing, right? Like, it seems like, everyone's got acne, like, well,
that's
not
what
everyone,
you hear when you have it.
Most people have, have it, right? Like especially teenagers, you go through, having some pimples here and there and stuff, but trying to solve a problem like that is weird and complicated. And then on top of it being like kind of complicated, it teaches you a lot of life lessons, because it's like, well, you're focusing in on this and you're trying to, use those Clearasil pads and like you're trying to do all this stuff with it. But it's a much bigger story that needs a much larger solution. What have you kind of learned through that process? Like, kind of through a nutritional standpoint, but just a life lesson as well. It's like, it's not about cleanliness. I'm sure you were taking showers and stuff like that. It literally has almost nothing to do with that at all. What are some things you've learned from that?
Oh man, so when I had that, I would ask myself, because I would always think in terms of like, God's trying to teach me a lesson. Oh, that's a beautiful picture. People listening probably can't see this, but it was a picture that I took my first day on Accutane. I think I was like 17 years old. And that was actually a good angle too. On the left and right, it was like pretty severe. And then of course on the chest and back and stuff. A few things you learn about that. So one of them is, you realize how much your confidence is impacted by that, which is huge, and your ability to interact with people. So you're no longer yourself. So I would always think, I want to do whatever it takes to be myself. So taking care of what you need to take care of. But I would always think like, what lesson is God trying to teach me? Like, that's the lens through which I viewed it. And I was like, I got it, God, like, wash my face. Like, okay, so can we get rid of this now? Like, I'll take care of myself. But I realized, like, now I realize it was way deeper than that. It was about man, it was about like being confident. It was about feeling unstoppable when things are in your favor. It was about moving forward. It was about, bringing your best to challenges, about not saying no and not backing down from those. Like when I had that, there were many times when I felt kind of hopeless around that whole situation. And it's like your whole life kind of changes. Like you see people walking up and they're looking at your face and they're kind of like studying your face, and then you look at them and they look away, that sort of thing. Any friends that you had, all of a sudden they start hanging out with you a lot less, or, those kind of things. So
everything's amplified and people might not even actually care. Mm-hmm. But because you care so much, because you're dealing with it every day,
you project that.
Yeah, you think everyone's freaking out about it. You think that he and I are getting together laughing about it. Be like, oh, you think all these crazy thoughts, but that becomes your reality. That becomes the kind of image that you built up of yourself. How did you? So doing the vegan diet helped a lot. It seemed like the carnivore diet helped a lot. How have you been able to help other people? Like, when people have come to you about acne specifically, have you been able to help everyone be able to get rid of it?
I haven't been asked about that a ton, but when I did that post, I did get a lot of people asking me about it. And I just give them very, very simple advice about what works. So the vegetable oils are huge. Like, you really have to cut those out completely. The sugars, that's huge.
Vegetable oils are what, like in processed foods and stuff like that too, and at restaurants pretty heavily and things like that, right?
Exactly. So pretty much any fat that's used at a restaurant, 99% of the time is canola oil or peanut oil or some sort of like seed oil.
So I maybe try to ask if you do go to a restaurant to say, hey, like, I'm allergic to that, or make some deal of it, right?
That's actually a great strategy. You just tell them you're allergic to it.
I'll die.
They'll make sure it's not in there. So sticking to, you could, like, coconut oil is fine. You could do butter. Olive oil is fine. So the fats that you eat, that's huge, because that's going to be lining your cells, and that's going to be like a huge source of inflammation if you're experiencing that. Acne is all about reducing inflammation. So that's one of the things you do. Obviously, cutting out sources of sugar. I found that on the vegan diet, even though I was consuming sugar from fruits, that wasn't really an issue. It was consuming like junk, really. When I was back at home and it's in the morning and you have a muffin on the way to school, it was like that kind of stuff that really makes it bad. So if you're having fruits and vegetables, I think you're fine. So that's another thing. Another thing that's really helpful, liver. So Accutane is basically extremely high dose vitamin A. And liver is also very high dose vitamin A in a very bioavailable form. So if you can consume liver a few times a week, vitamin A kind of helps you regulate the amount of oil your body's producing. If your body's overproducing oil and you have slow skin cell turnover, it causes the bacteria to accumulate. It can cause these little clogs in the pores, and then that's where you start to get this like really inflammatory acne. So have some liver, that'll bring down some of that oil production, and that'll help out with that as well. Egg yolks are extremely helpful. Oysters with the zinc and kind of regulating your testosterone levels, that's extremely helpful. Any sort of fatty fish. Omega-3s are extremely helpful with reducing the inflammation. So those are the main ones. I kind of tell people to eat, properly raised meat, eggs, fish, incorporate some liver in there. I actually think green tea is really helpful with that as well. I had a lot of green tea when I was trying to get rid of it. So green tea, grains I found to be something that really aggravates it for me. Even if it's whole grains and even if it's oatmeal, things like that. So there could be something about that and the way my gut responds to that tends to trigger it. But that's the advice I give people. It's completely something that you can get rid of in a relatively short amount of time if you turn things around. Like if you really change your diet, you can actually get rid of this. Like that picture that we were showing, I feel like I could have reversed that acne in probably 3 weeks. Wow. if I focused on doing, man, I wish I knew that back then, because I wouldn't have had to do the whole Accutane thing. But you can reverse that. Or do a vegan diet. Like if I could tell that kid, anything, I would tell him, look, you start fasting, you drink water throughout the day. When you're at school, you don't really need to eat. When you get home, you're only eating protein. I want you to have, maybe some fruits and vegetables. You have some liver, and that whole thing is going to go away. Oh, and make sure you sleep as much as you can. So stop going to bed at midnight, and then you got to get up at 6 for school, but actually sleep, because sleep's going to reduce inflammation as well. And that would have made life a whole lot easier for me.
Amen. And I think it's powerful that you at least went through the difficult aspects of it, because now that people come to you, I mean, you have all these experiences, you have all of the stuff that you already did. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, but you know, so that's awesome. Yeah.
There was a thing that I used to tell myself back then, like it's this mantra that I always repeat to myself when I'm going through those times is like, it was like, we'll figure this out. Like, we'll be okay. Like, this is going to be all right. And I would always tell myself that. But at that time, I used to think, man, I would see people like walk out of their house in the morning and like they're in like pajamas or whatever. They're going to go to the store to get something. And I'm like, they did not have to wash their face, put anything on. They can just get up and go to the store and just relax.
Yeah.
But I would always tell myself, like, if I ever get rid of this, I'm going to go for acting. Like, I'm probably going to be unstoppable if I ever get rid of this, because I can do whatever I want after that. That felt like the major limiting factor in my life. The funny thing is, when you take care of it, it's not just that. You actually, it's like inside of you. You realize like that same insecurity and issues with self-esteem will start to surface in other areas. And then you realize like you can't keep playing whack-a-mole. Like you actually have to take care of whatever that deep insecurity is.
So just like the acne kind of inside out approach, you have to, and then I'm sure like as a kid, with that amount of acne, it was probably hard to like communicate with people as well as you're able to do nowadays, and look people in the eye as much and things like that are probably difficult, right?
Yeah, you don't look anybody in the eye when you have that. Like, I would never have a face-to-face conversation with someone. I would kind of be like, if I was talking to you, I'd be like looking over here, and my head would be kind of, and I'd look up every now and then just to not be rude.
Right.
There was no talking to girls. You don't talk to girls when you're that insecure. So yeah, that. Like there was a lot of kind of, I guess, social stunting at that point. And then I went to college and that girl said that compliment and I had a lot of catch-up work. I was like, all right, we're back. We're back up and running. Let's start talking to people and being a human being. So
is the acne what led you to all the different diets pretty much?
Exactly.
That's what kind of forced you into learning. So, I mean, none of it would have ever happened if you didn't have. So maybe that was God's plan all along for you, huh?
It was a huge blessing in disguise, like a lot of struggles, if you have the right mindset around it. If I had just said, you know what, like I'm not going to try to figure this out, I'm just going to deal with it and live with it, like that wouldn't have led to any growth. The struggle was a good thing. So yeah, when people tell you to accept yourself and like body positivity and things like that, that's great. Don't judge yourself for something you can't change, but also don't accept something that you can change and improve on. Don't get complacent for no reason. Like I knew that I could have had a healthier diet. So I was like, let's do that. Why am I going to accept that I can't eat pizza, or things like that? Like you don't accept that stuff.
What else have you seen, the style of diet that you've a carnivore style diet? What else have you seen it help people with, that maybe you work with?
One of the big things is like your mental health. That's something I've noticed a lot of. And yes, part of that could be the fact that you're consuming a lot of fat-soluble nutrients that help your brain, and you're reducing so much inflammation, and you're taking out so many toxins that it can create an environment for the brain to function optimally. But I think also the simplicity of finally having a solution that you can stick to and that you feel good on, and it's sending your body in the right direction, and just feeling like you're doing something effective, if that's placebo or not, that mental like simplicity can really just calm you down. And if you're always stressed out all the time, it just makes things worse. So I've noticed both of those things. People have a sense of relief, and then they also have a lot of mental clarity. So that's a big one. Satiety comes back. So people are like, I've never had to eat this much to lose fat. Some of the people that do my programs, they're like, do I really have to eat this much protein? Like I'm too full. And it's like, that's a great problem to have. Like good, so satiety is a big one. Upping the protein a little bit does tend to help out with like the muscle glycogen. So I've noticed a lot of people tend to do well when they're not afraid of the whole gluconeogenesis process and they have a bit more protein. That's another one. Just sustainability. So people finally find something that they can actually stick to. and it becomes a base for a lot of people. I notice a lot of people that do carnivore, myself included, don't end up staying strict carnivore, but we use it as a base. It's something you can always revert back to. I know that steak and eggs work, so that's going to be there for the rest of my life, and I can just tinker around the edges.
Yeah, if something happened and you were to gain weight and be depressed or something for a period of time, you'd be like, all right, steak and eggs.
Yeah,
Right
you
back
have
to it,
control.
right?
Yeah, you're in control of your weight and of your body, which is a huge thing. Like when Jordan Peterson talks about cleaning your room, it's simply to give yourself a feeling of being in control of your life. But whenever you feel out of control of something and you can't do anything about it, that's like a really bad feeling. And if you feel that way about your body, you're like, I'm trying so damn hard to lose weight, but I'm so hungry. I can't stop eating. If you finally feel like, wow, I'm actually full and I'm losing weight and I feel great, and you're in control of that, it changes a lot of other things in your life. You're like, what else can I take care of now?
Yeah.
So it's like a good starting point for other things.
As far as your diet was concerned, actually, did you ever feel, because you never mentioned that you had problems with like binge eating or anything
I
like
did.
that. You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Towards the end of the vegan diet, to keep body fat off, because I was so hungry, I started to calorie restrict. So I would hit like the small deficits and things like that. And calorie restricting on a vegan diet for me, plus like the sleep deprivation of being on the show, you get picked up at like 6 something in the morning. So the only time I had energy to train would be before that. So I would get up at like 3:30 or 4 and go train, and then you get back from set at like 8. So I was sleep deprived, and I was like not eating enough.
Yeah.
And I was fueling myself off of carbs, so I was always hungry too. So I would have times when I would finally break, and I would go buy like coconut ice cream, and I would go buy like sweet potato fries, and I would just go crazy on that. And I had a weekend. Oh boy. So I had this weekend in New Zealand where we had about 3-4 days in between filming, and me and my buddies went to Sydney, Australia, and we just hung out there for the weekend. And they were eating normally, and we go out to a little casino and have fun. I was nowhere to be found when they were all hanging out, because I was literally at this restaurant ordering everything, and I gained 10 pounds that weekend. And I went back, and the makeup people were trying to draw contours on my face because I had bloated up like crazy. And it's like you're trying to hit the brakes, and you're trying so hard, but you can't stop eating. It's just like, let me just down all this food, and then I'm going to be good. And as soon as you're done with that, you're walking back to your hotel. You're like, let me just stop in the gas station real quick. It's really like an addiction. It's like a drug thing almost. So yeah, I had issues with binge eating. And for a while, I thought, like, do I have a mental issue? Like, is that where this is led with all the calorie counting and restriction? And you see people that just eat normally and they're lean. And you're like, what the hell? How do you do that? Like, how do you possibly eat until you're full and have energy and be lean? I almost didn't think that was possible. And I thought maybe my hormones are just messed up, or maybe I have a slow metabolism now. So when you find out that you can eat normally and be full and be lean, that's like, really? You can? But you can. There's a way to do it. You take care of your sleep, you eat the right foods, you stay active, you do a little bit of fasting, and you put everything together, and it works.
Yeah. What do we got going on in 2020? What's the goal?
I don't know if I like talking about my goals or not. I really don't know. Some people say do it.
Lay them out there, bro. No, just anything coming up, in the next couple weeks or months.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm actually going to Nashville to do some rap. So,
awesome.
Yeah,
you sent me a video. You rapping.
Yeah.
Saw that on your IG.
So I've been having fun with that. That was another one of those weird opportunities that life throws you. And I said, you know what? I have no shame. So I was like, let me just do it. So I've now done like a couple songs, and comicbook.com, who's like really supportive of what I've been doing. And they've got a great platform. So we're going to go there. We're going to do a live performance. They're going to be like hosting and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So that's coming up. The 2 books are out, so that's already done. And the main focus for me in 2020 now is just all about acting.
Nice.
The Carnivore cookbook, we have it on the table here. What's the other book?
And then the PE diet with Dr. Ted Naiman and myself. And that was a pleasure, man, because he's like, I really, really value the stuff that he puts out there. He was the kind of guy, that led me through that maze of like binge eating, where I was like, oh, wow, this strategy works. So I would always think like, I wish this guy would make a book, like
just eating more protein. You feel that helped you a lot with binge eating? Hugely. And also in terms of the whole keto thing, like you don't need to eat so much fat.
Like, how about just eat the fats that are already in the meat and
Right.
already in the eggs, and just eat more of those foods. You don't need to chop a butter and slap it on top and do that. So he helped me out a lot with that, the PE diet. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to right now.
What are you doing kind of on like a daily basis to get further down the road with your acting? Like, are you like acting in front of a mirror? Are you, getting out of your car and going on the street corner and, reciting some Shakespeare or something? Like, is there, what's some of the process that you're trying to work towards?
Right now it's studying film, and that's something that I work on as much as I can. So it's usually a couple times a week. Watching shows, that's huge. And then also just watching actors I admire and then studying like their process and what they do. I like a lot of old actors, so I like to read a lot of like Marlon Brando's crazy self and like what he would do for preparation and things like that. But yeah, watching film, and like when you're watching it, it's not watching it for enjoyment. You watch the actor's performance and what did they put into that? What sort of voices are they adding to that? What sort of inflections? Sometimes I'll watch it and I'll look at the lighting. What does the lighting do to a person's face? Sometimes you watch it for like emotional intent, and you'll see things like if somebody's trying to portray intimidation and the way that they slowly raise their head, do they start with the eyes and do they look at you, or do they keep their eyes down and then slowly it's like little things like that, little things you can add in your toolbox. So I watch it for different things. So that's part of it. And then I'm going to be getting back into acting classes, so that'll be like a regular process. And then auditions keep you on your toes too, because you're pretty much every single day working on a new scene, a new approach. And that's really fun. Like, auditions kind of feel like testing your strength, You're practicing all these skills and you think you're learning stuff in acting class. Then you get to the audition and you figure out, like, is this landing or not? Like, when they say action and these people are watching back there, can I fake my way through this or not? So it's kind of fun.
I think just general self-development too will help with the whole process.
Hugely.
Like just working on yourself. You're already doing the lifting. You're already adhering to a specific diet. Having a regimen and waking up early and trying to get after it. Like, all those things will benefit you a ton. As you work your way up the ladder with acting.
What we're all doing is creating characters. That's what it really all is. So every single day when we're working on this character and we're like, you know what? I want this person to be strong and confident and timely, and I want this person to be articulate, and I want to do this and that. And you're putting all of these things into that character. It's very similar with acting. When you put a certain outfit on and you're working on a character, you can start to feel that it causes you to act differently. And you can take a lot of those things to your own life. Like, well, maybe if I want to be more confident, I can sort of put things on, and I can stand in a certain way. I could speak in a certain way. I could think certain thoughts more often. I could say things to myself. If you're trying to go to like a really dark place with the role, your internal dialogue changes. And that can be really unhealthy, I think, for a lot of actors. But you have to use whatever's going to work for you. So I'm not somebody with a lot of trauma, and I don't care to have any trauma. So like certain roles that are dark, sometimes you have to give it something and just fake it. Mm-hmm. And that actually works sometimes, because you have to think it's not all your performance. There's music playing, and there's writing, and there's a story, and the audience has an expectation going into it. So they're already going to perceive you a certain way. Sometimes you just have to show up and not try too hard. So yeah, it's a really, really fun process, but I think about that a lot in terms of building character. Like, the same way that you build a character in acting, you're doing that with your life constantly. Who do you associate with? Like, what lifestyles are you studying? What books are you reading? Like, what's that putting into the vessel? And then what performance are you giving throughout the day? And if you don't like the performance, then like you give yourself director notes, you ask yourself the questions, like, and you kind of interview yourself. And then you kind of change things about your preparation. So acting is pretty much life, but yeah, you just learn to manage the process, or you're kind of aware of it.
I think acting is like bizarre. It's like severely underrated from people that have never been in front of a camera. To act something out, like say like putting out a fire, if we were like had a fire truck out front, it's like, oh, we can all panic and we can all like pretend that we're firefighters. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't really be that hard to act, mm-hmm. because we are occupied with other things, and we have like props basically. Mm-hmm. But like try to act like you're the podcast engineer, like, and mm-hmm. so then now you're on camera, and you got a couple lines, but you're supposed to just be like chill. So it's really difficult because you're not yelling, you're not a maniac, you're not depending on what person you're trying to act like, I guess. But it's a crazy talent. It's a really interesting talent. When I watch some of these real seasoned people act, I'm always like blown away, like a Morgan Freeman or something like that, where you're just like, I have no idea how I would, because I envision some of that sometimes, just because I've been in front of a lot of cameras before, and I'm like, wow, that would just be really difficult to figure that out. To come in and yell and scream, or to cry or something, I could probably figure out some of those things. But to try to figure out how to like act normal, even if you said, hey, I want you just to act in front of the camera and be yourself, but you got to have these lines, that would be weird too. Like because I don't have practice at it.
That's
It would be
repetition.
difficult. Yeah,
it's like the more repetition you do, like when you're trying to convey that ease and confidence in front of, or like in a performance, if you have to do something very simple, so they say, and then you think about something and an idea pops into your head, and then you get up and you go do that. To do something as simple as that, it's like repetition. So then it finally just looks easy and natural over time. That's a big part of like those effortless performances where they say like the person was just living in the moment. Really what it is you just feel comfortable. Like if you go up there and it's your first time doing it, like you're screwed, if they say action and like, you're like, you know what, I'm just going to be natural and just live in the moment. You got lines, and then they tell you to hit your mark, and then you need to turn your face this way because the light is hitting a certain angle. And then you have to think about all that, and this whole effortless performance thing that you thought you were going to do, it's done. Like
you have to act like you're good at it, even. Right?
Yeah. You even have to do that. Like it's all of those kind of things. So it's like the more preparation you do beforehand, you just give yourself a better shot when you get in the ring. Like when you're actually on the set and the director's yelling at you and you're trying to focus, and then the camera is going to be like panning over here, and you're like, don't look in the camera, like don't be an amateur, and you're trying to like look where you're supposed to look and still focus on what you're doing. If you're still thinking about your lines, like you're screwed. So that's another thing that comes from the gym, is just like repetition with it and making it easier on yourself.
What's your favorite scene? What's your favorite favorite thing that's ever been acted out that you've seen that like just still gives you like goosebumps or still gets you excited about acting?
Oh boy, Al Pacino's really good. Al Pacino's done some incredible performances. When you watch the subtlety and the danger of his performance in The Godfather, and then you watch how just crazy he is in Scarface, you can't believe that's the same person.
You'll never see another bad guy like me. That's like the greatest thing ever.
It's amazing because he embodied two completely like different styles of acting with those, like a very more reserved kind of method style, and then with Scarface, it was like he went for it. He went off the rails with that. Like it's amazing to watch that. I have movies that give me chills. Like I would say a lot of Marlon Brando's performances, like I find incredible because he had that thing down. Like what a character that guy was, but he really he knew how to make you watch and not want to look away. And then he could play with your expectations. So you're like expecting something and he's just not giving it to you yet. He's just kind of like dwelling and lingering a little bit. And then boom, when you're least expecting it, like he hits you with something and you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. So he's very fun to watch. But for me, it's mainly like movies that have certain moments that feel like moments of ecstasy, when the music and the story and the cinematography and everything comes together at one moment. Like you could feel it inside, and it kind of like you tear up a little bit or you get goosebumps.
It's like nothing better than a good movie, and there's like nothing worse than a bad movie. Exactly. Like on the complete flip side, right? There's nothing worse than being like, man, that was a real bag of shit that I just watched. But it feels so great when you saw something that moved you in some way, even if you're not into acting or not into film necessarily. You just saw something that just really grabbed you. So it's an interesting thing.
Anytime you can convey stillness in a movie in like a beautiful way, like that's powerful.
Stillness.
Yeah, stillness. So like there's this movie Amélie, and it's a French movie, and they'll have scenes in there where you're literally just seeing like it's like streaming water in Paris, things like that, and the girl is just walking down the street. And this goes on for like 10 seconds and you're watching it, and it's the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. And like that kind of stuff. I love that in movies, and that's like one of my goals, to be able to be in a movie that has one of those moments, where everything comes together at one moment, where people just feel like emotionally overcome.
I think we
That'd be
sometimes
cool.
lose track of the fact that, you're telling a story with a picture, so you can use words, but there's a million, as you're mentioning, lighting, music, like there's so many other ways we can attack this. It doesn't have to all be through the words. What about like an actor that maybe somebody wouldn't expect that you really like? Like, is there like Chris Farley or an Adam Sandler or someone that you appreciated because they really just like went for it in a different way, or maybe even like a stand-up comedian or somebody who's maybe a little offbeat?
Norm Macdonald. I love him. I think he's incredible.
Saturday Night Live for a long time, right?
Yeah, Weekend Update. I'm a huge fan. So I watch a lot of like old Johnny Carson kind of stuff, and I love those old comedians that would go on there. Huge fan of Don Rickles. I would just like the way that he would attack people, but it was with love. But in terms of actors that people wouldn't expect, I like Peter O'Toole. He was a great English actor. He did a lot of really, really cool things. Yeah, most of the actors that I'm a fan of, though, are just like from that kind of old school era. I liked watching like Clark Gable and stuff like that. Really classic performances.
Did you like Tarantino's latest film?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't get a chance to see it?
Yeah, I didn't actually watch it yet. Is it good?
The Irishman? Is that what it is, right?
No, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, that one. Whoops.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Oh no, I haven't seen The Irishman yet. Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's some really cool scenes in there. There's actually a pretty long scene that has Leonardo DiCaprio like acting through, because he's an actor in the film, and so they show this scene where he's getting super frustrated with himself. But I'm sure if anyone could relate to it, it'd probably be yourself. He has a really good performance, so I think you'd probably enjoy that. You should check it out.
There are times when the director is giving you a note over and over and over again, and it just starts to piss you off because you're doing what he's telling you to do, and
Or at least you think you are, right?
yeah, you think you are, but there's something that they're getting at that you're just not doing. That gets really frustrating sometimes, and it's over and over again, and then you can feel the crew's getting frustrated, and then you're like, God, it's that kind of stuff's weird.
Sit your hips back when you're squatting. I am. I am.
Like, no, you ain't.
Exhale all of your air. I am.
No, you're not.
I'm trying. I can't breathe. Yeah, I'm sure you experienced this, and I know for sure, Mark, when it came to the bodybuilding stuff, like how much more respect do you have now for people that can just turn it on, flex, pose for a picture, go on stage, do all that, and then smile? Like, dude, right now I'm looking at it, it's like damn near impossible. So I'm sure like acting was kind of the same thing, right? Like as soon as you actually get into it, you actually know how much more like complex everything is. It's not just like camera and smile.
Yeah, it's really just repetition. That's all it is, and you get more comfortable over time. And every role is just a new problem to solve, and you don't want to use the same solutions. If you think you've arrived at like a style of acting, and you're like, okay, I know what I do now. I read the script, and then I go rehearse it a few times, and I add a few movements into it and some stuff to make it seem unique. And that's what I'm going to do for every role. Like, maybe not, you might maybe need to like study the psychology of your character. You might need to study why they do what they do. You might need to write up for every single line of dialogue. You might need to write up a whole page of backstory just to fully inhabit the mind of this person. Like, it's different things. And then there's some roles where they hired you just because you're you. Just be yourself and say the lines, and it might be as simple as that. So like every role definitely is a different circumstance.
Thank you so much for today. I always appreciate you having here
Thank
at
you.
Super Training. You enjoying some family for Christmas here?
Yeah. I'm going to hang out with them. We're going to do all the things they're already doing in Modesto, so a whole lot of nothing. And
I was going to say, you're going to do crystal meth?
Modesto. Yeah, no, we're going to do the usual and just hang out and spend time together, and it'll be good. And then back down to Huntington.
Cool. Great to have you on the show. Where can people find you?
Instagram at William Shewfelt, Shewfelt, on youtube.com/Will Shewfelt. And then I also do this Will to Win podcast where I kind of compile all the content I make from videos and I put that into a podcast. So it's just Will to Win podcast. And yeah.
Oh, we'll give you some clips for it from today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.